Cryptic, do you like the mustache?
Yeah, the mustache is awesome, man.
Do you like it, really?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't fit you, but I think the mustache is awesome.
No. It's mustaches are great. Not on you. Your face, not good. In general, mustache could be okay. On Junie, perhaps, better than on you.
You look amazing regardless, man. You look amazing.
All right, guys, welcome to the next episode of Coffee Break. Super glad to have you here. We do an MMO podcast every single week on Friday with my good friend Cryptic Villain, my good wife Junie Vision, and we discuss systems, pros, cons of different MMOs. We compare, contrast, and talk about things in the gaming industry at the time. It's a new topic every single week, and this month has been crazy. There's so much going on in the world of MMOs, and Guild Wars 2 is, of course, no exception. For the first time in 4.5 years. I think it's been 4.5 years since we've gotten an expansion. This is really, really big for the denizens of Tyria. For those of you guys who don't know, I met Junie Vision, my lovely wife, in Tyria. I met my good friend Cryptic in Tyria. I love Guild Wars 2. I've been waiting. I've been hoping. I have been hoping against hope that this expansion is everything we've wanted it to be. And now we've had about, several days? I don't know. How many days? 4 days to go over this expansion, get our first impressions about what's not enough days, and that's true. But we have some first impressions to share, so we're going to be discussing what we like, what we don't like, the systems, our concerns, and we're going to be answering your questions. Dejanu says, good wife. So if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to throw something out there, we're going to be reading chat and interacting with you the entire time, so please do that. It makes chat way more fun for us. I know you guys have a lot of feelings about this. Most of our community is Guild Wars 2, which is awesome. So let's get into it.
I have a comment and a concern. My comment is we're actually almost on 5 years since the expansion.
Whoa.
Yeah, crazy. And my concern is you have a bad wife? Because good wife means that you have a bad wife, right? Where's this bad wife?
The term good wife is a thing, right? It doesn't necessitate a bad wife. Hold on.
The Good Wife was a television series.
Yeah.
And
right, that's it.
I have a fun story about that. So
wait, that's not coffee break topic.
That's true.
Especially not since I'm TV now.
Especially not since I'm reading the synopsis of The Good Wife, and it says, when a very public sex and political corruption scandal lands her husband Peter in prison. I don't know. This is not where we're going. It's not very Junie related.
That's fair.
No, go ahead. Go share your story.
Well, the end of the story goes to the fact that back in many moons ago, I had a part-time job working on like sets and stuff. So I used to do like stand-in work.
Stand-in work.
Okay. Yeah. So anywho, when I was doing that on The Good Wife, it's where I found, because I'm a huge fan of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, me too.
That is where I got to meet my fellow stand-in person at the time, who was actually Mike TV. The little guy from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
The dude that goes in the television.
Yes.
The kid that's got like the pistols.
Yes. So obviously all grown up, like much older now, but he as a surprise, nobody knew.
I forgot about this.
Nobody knew it was him. Basically, he never told anybody that he worked with that he was Mike TV. And then at Christmas, I think it was at Christmas time, he gave everyone printed out golden tickets with his signature on them. It was so
I got a golden ticket. I got a golden ticket. Do they have an English accent in that? Am I just putting that on for no reason?
I don't know.
I got a golden ticket.
I still have it around here somewhere. I'll have
Do you really? Wait, no, we're losing viewers. Stop. I'll stop singing. I'll stop singing. I promise.
Okay, back to coffee break.
All right, so welcome to the next episode of Coffee Break, guys. Again, Cryptic Villain, Junie Vision. Love you guys. Thank you for being a part of our podcast. So this week we're going to be discussing EOD, or End of Dragons. The expansion just came out on Monday. So before we get into any of the details, can I just reiterate again how upset I am that out of 4.5 to 5 years, somewhere in between there, a very long time, Guild Wars 2 came out on Monday, February 28th, and not 2/22/2022 on a Tuesday for Guild Wars 2's new expansion. Can I get some booze in chat? I was just so sad. I feel like it's the greatest missed opportunity for a release date of all time ever. Yeah? Am I alone?
No, you're right. I mean,
Thank you, Danger.
Destiny 2 did it, so they released their expansion on a
Yes.
on
It was a Tuesday.
it was a Tuesday, yeah.
I mean, what are the freaking odds of that? Sassy Cat posted on I didn't even think about it, but Sassy Cat posted on the day on 2/22 in the afternoon on 2/22/22 and said make a wish. I was like, "Oh crap, it's so cool."
You know, it's odd, speaking about that, it's odd that they didn't want to release the expansion on that day, and yet just a couple of days later they released it, and they didn't. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think, but I feel like this expansion could have used more play testing. I love this expansion. Don't get me wrong. I actually do like it. But don't you think it could have used more play testing? Has anyone completed a meta event at all?
Well, okay, so
does the Zen, what was that place? The Shadow Forest? Does that count as
no,
meta?
No.
that's not a meta event. That's not a meta event. So I think so. This is going to branch into a couple other topics. But I should say, and I saw several posts about this on Twitter, basically complimenting EOD because we've seen so many games come out with really messy launches. I would say for stability's sake, right? Which is where a lot of us sort of worry. Am I going to be able to log in that day? Right? Am I going to get kicked out constantly? Are there going to be crashes or story breaks that are not going to allow me to continue? These things really define a good or bad launch to me. I would say maybe you say play testing. Yeah, I get that. That's a little separate, but I think its launch was really good. I think like it was a very solid, stable launch in a way that we're just not used to these days. I'm really pleased with that. I was expecting not to really be able to play day one, and I think a lot of you guys can relate to that, right? A new expansion comes out or a new game comes out, maybe take the day off after the day that it's released, right? Because day one, you might just be pissed all day. I think a lot of like long-term gamers kind of have that feeling ingrained. But what Cryptic is talking about is that a lot of the meta events are failing. And if you guys remember, does anyone remember another experience where this happened with Guild Wars 2? Another expansion came out and there was some unbalancing happening with the meta events. I don't know how long it took you guys to finish Serpent's Ire in POF when that expansion came out, but it was atrocious. Like I promise. Not only that, but in HOT, the same thing happened with the Chalk Garant. No one could beat the Chalk Garant. That took months, like for people to get that down.
That was like a learning thing, right? Like most of these meta events are failing because the maps are empty or have been previously.
Well, okay, so you're right about that, and that's another issue we need to talk about, right? That's I want to call that a whole
separate thing,
a whole separate thing, and that separate thing is like perception of success.
Yeah,
and I'm concerned about Guild Wars 2's success for the expansion simply because of perception of success as a result of that. Also, Xander the Mesmer with a big raid coming in. Welcome, guys. This is our coffee break podcast. We're discussing EOD today. So thank you very much for coming in. We're talking about basically the stability of the launch of EOD and also the balance of the meta events. So I don't have as much experience with it. Granted, the expansion's only been out for 4 days, but from what I gather, so we said that Chalk Garant was really hard when that expansion first came out because it required a certain level of play style change from what people were used to.
Yeah.
Right? We actually had to coordinate together, like big meta style events. That was new in HOT. So we really had to coordinate. People had to learn the fight. People had to get good. That's perfectly fine. When Serpent's Ire came out, it was ridiculous, right? The balance was a little wrong. It took some time to get it right. Even with enormous groups, that fight didn't take the same level of coordination and yet was still like way harder. This one, from what I gather, it's difficult to get enough people together because the zones are feeling pretty empty and there are enormous CC changes. Right? CC is being failed in meta events. It's defining the ability to succeed or not. And I think that's going to bring us into another topic also, that the game seems to be going for I don't know, what would you call it? Like a renewed focus on some tertiary mechanics of Guild Wars 2, right? They don't want to tank and spank anymore. They're really focusing on CC. They're really focusing on combo fields. I think this is like a fascinating change. How much of that do you think is bad balancing versus people needing to wrap their mind around focusing on different things, like the necessity of bringing enough CC and really focusing on it?
I think it's good balancing. I mean, I don't know. I'm concerned that some of the changes that they're doing here with a more emphasis on CC, um, and combo fields, and I believe in the last the last bet event, I'll try to avoid saying things for spoiler reasons, but in the last
Thank
bet
you.
event, which I haven't done myself either, but I've talked to people that done it. There's also like not really a jumping puzzle, but like a route you have to take that like
Mhm.
causes issues. Um, but yeah, I mean, between uh, um, between those three things being like adding more of these like challenging elements, I think it's good for the game. I'm
Mhm.
concerned that it may just be a band-aid on some of the larger issues. Only time will tell about that. But the more challenge we're introduced in, like we talk about this in Heart of Thorns. Heart of Thorns was revolutionary for the game because it introduced all of these new challenging things that players had to become accustomed to, right?
Mhm.
Just coordinating in meta events,
Sure.
the challenge of raids, the difficulty of mobs just hitting harder and
You
having
remember
more
people
health.
complaining when it first came out, getting wrecked
Yes,
by
yes. Just by
like
pocket
pocket
raptors.
rappers and stuff,
Yeah, pocket
and
raptors just
what are
wrecking
those
people.
shadow things that like teleport around and blind you and
Yep.
stuff? Like people were not ready for the difficulty
Yes.
jump.
Yes. And I think Guild Wars 2 needs another difficulty jump, not because it's what the player base needs. That's what we needed for Heart of Thorns. That's not what's needed here. The reason that we need difficulty jump is power creep has just happened. We
Yep.
have just out power creeped. What I mean, you go back to Heart of Thorns now and you laugh at pocket raptors, right? Like you
Yes.
literally stand there and laugh at them.
Do you think that
So
that is entirely the creep, or also, I mean, that's the factor we're discussing, right? Or is it people have gotten used to it? Maybe it's just a harsh change every time something new is added. Like, do I just flail myself into mobs anymore? Like, no. Like, I feel like I'm better at it now. In fact, even in
yeah.
HOT, I felt like when I first walked in, I was trash and I was getting killed by everything. And then by the end of HOT, right, prior to creep having too big a role, I think like there's always this sort of moment of adjustment.
Mhm.
HOT was the biggest, right? Because there was no difficulty. Like nothing in Guild Wars 2 was really hard
Exactly.
before that happened. And if we're going to talk specifically about the meta events, I think it's a real issue to discuss, which is the size of the maps and how many people are in your map. I found it really fascinating. Reckham Jones, I've been waiting to bring up your comment there. He said EU is packed, so it must be an NA thing. So what does that mean exactly? For those of you guys who maybe haven't noticed it yourself, we're walking through these zones empty. I mean, it feels like not just that the expansion just came out. It's not just that it's not that way where everything is packed and you're having to wait in line for like NPCs and stuff like it is in other games, but it's like this is old, obsolete content. I'm walking through these giant cities and I see no one.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that it's not just that no one is playing this game. Anecdotally, I can tell you that every person that I've talked to has loved this expansion.
Mhm.
But it is bizarre to be walking around by yourself all day, the day after this giant expansion is released that we've been waiting 4 years for.
Not just one day, I would say 3 days out. The last night was the first night that I actually felt like there were people around me. It still wasn't enough. The meta event still failed, so it still was not enough. But I mean, like I said, I haven't made it to the last map. I'm just finished the second map. There's four major maps.
Echovold?
Yep. Yeah. So I just made it to Echovold. So I haven't gotten to the last one. I heard people are actually completing the meta events there now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But without a doubt, you could forget the difficulty that is a part of it for some of these meta events. That is a whole, a whole nother issue, or maybe not issue. I think it's fine. But just the empty maps was the biggest impediment. Forget meta events. I couldn't even accomplish simple events that just required a few people, like kill the Leviathan event, that event that is in on every like all the maps with water. I haven't been able to do that, not a single, because like there isn't enough people.
Get good,
Um,
Cryptic.
Well, I am playing an Untamed Ranger, so there isn't
Oh,
really a
so
lot of
come on.
damage
Like,
there.
hey,
Yeah,
whoa,
there's
whoa,
not a lot
whoa.
of
Like,
damage
we
there.
need to put that in perspective first. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a lot of damage there, but still, I mean,
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
It's impacting the game. It's impacting the experience of the game,
Yeah,
right? Like
and
for better and for worse, I would say.
to illustrate my point, do you remember when Heart of Thorns came out?
I
I didn't
do.
do this with Pacifier. With Pacifier, I literally just played through the story. I didn't really take part in many events. I just played through the story. But when
Mhm.
Heart of Thorns came out, we went out there, we explored the jungle,
Yep.
and I did every event that I came across, all the adventures, every little thing. I was so interested in it, and they were all fun, and there was tons of people doing it with me. I was watching people
Yep.
fail the adventures, the people doing like the
Oh, the adventures were
yes.
added for HOT. I loved that.
You do you remember the mushroom adventure, watching people turn into a mushroom and running and like falling
Yes.
off and failing? That was so much fun.
The Fungus Among Us?
Yes, Fungus Among
Yes.
Us. Yes, yes,
That's the best name
exactly.
ever, dude.
Yes, it
I
was
love that so
amazing.
much.
It was amazing, and I loved that shared experience. And you could have some of those same shared experiences in EOD. It's a good expansion. It's there for us to do.
Mhm.
But I'm literally standing in the middle of a map with the meta happening, and there isn't a
Yep.
soul around me.
Yeah, and I think that we should talk, or at least briefly mention, that this is one of the greatest things about Guild Wars 2, right? You guys
Mhm.
have heard me say this before. I say it all the time. Guild Wars 2 deserves a lot of credit that it doesn't get. And one of the things, because I've been playing MMOs since EverQuest in 2000, like I've been playing them since they've been around. And the greatest thing that Guild Wars 2 changed, the fundamental experience that was changed, was the first time I walked into Tyria, I had to relearn what it meant to be around other people. In other games, unless they're in your party, people around you are bad. This is an MMORPG, right? And you're supposed to like feel pretty epic when you got a ton of people around you. But in most games, that meant kill stealing, difficulty getting quest NPCs, inability to fight enough monsters to level up, uh, uh, fighting over challenging each other for resource nodes
Mhm.
or quest pickups, right? Like other people being near you was a bad thing. Guild Wars 2 changed that entirely. And it really took me a long time to get used to that. Seeing somebody else, they're not stealing any of your nodes. They only represent something good for you. They actually make it so events are more likely to complete or progress to another step. They're going to aid you in your tasks, whatever they are, and not hinder them at all. So I fight that feeling from old MMOs, like, oh, I've got this world to myself and this is kind of cool.
Mhm.
But if you're walking through the world and you come across a cool event and you're unable to complete it because you're cryptic and on a bunny thumper and there's no one near you, that's a total bummer, right? Like that actually takes something away from your ability to enjoy the content. So I think this has two factors here. One is that it is affecting the way in which we're able to experience the content, right? Maybe we don't do that quest. Maybe we don't do
Mhm.
that event. So we're robbed of an experience. Or we cannot complete the meta event because there's not enough people. We
Mhm.
can't even get the final mount, which is gated behind
Mhm.
a giant meta that must succeed in order to
Yes.
get the big mount that everyone is looking for. So
Yep.
this is actually hindering the experience. Um, and I think also, and this is something that really needs to be focused, is that the perception of a game's success often defines its level of success. I've said it for years. All you have to do to make a game die is say, game dead. Like, all you're gonna need the perception of the game
Mhm.
affects that. And so when a brand new expansion comes out, especially after it's been a 4.5 years, almost 5 years since an expansion's come out, so we have a
Mhm.
lot of expectations. And B, basically after everything that happened in ArenaNet last year, when we were really concerned for the company's
Mhm.
longevity, all those things, like we're putting a lot of our eggs in this basket. So
Oh,
the
yeah.
perception of how successful this expansion is a big deal, right? So
I think this
someone is not
expansion is
informed and they're
make
running
or
around
break.
and they see no one, that's worrisome.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cryptic, what?
No, no, I was gonna say I think this expansion is make or break for ArenaNet. So you're absolutely right. It's very worrisome, and perception means a lot. To give another perception example, and you'll love this one. David Tennant, Doctor Who.
Mhm.
Doesn't she look tired?
Oh yes, no, that's the And that one sentence single-handedly made like the prime minister lose the election or whatever, right?
Yep, yep. He
So
basically brought down the prime minister's entire campaign, re-election
yeah,
campaign, just by saying, "Doesn't she look tired?" To her
yeah,
own aide, not even an opposition. So
right. So
perception means a
perception
lot.
is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially in this arena where people really kind of build on each other's voices, right? And everyone is looking at this game with concern for that reason. So to me, walking around in these empty zones is concerning. It
Oh
actually
yeah.
makes me worry. And even if it's not true, right? Maybe there's like a billion maps out there and it's actually doing really well. I don't know that, but my worrying for the game does impact the way that I look at it, right? So this is sort of like a big thing. Let's see. Phoenix says, I see two separate issues. One is the emptier maps, right, which we're discussing for metas that aren't Dragon's Den. Two is gating the turtle behind the difficult event. Like Dragon's Stand, the map was entirely locked behind Garant. Right. So that those are the things that we were just discussing, and it is really impactful. I think a lot of people are sort of struggling with this. This is something that I know that they've can anyone back me up on this? They spoke about it, right?
Mhm.
Ruby mentioned something. She was like, "We're aware of an issue, should be fixed."
Yeah,
But is it though?
I'm curious how they're gonna fix it though.
the way that she worded it in her post though was that she's aware that it is an issue, that the players see it as an issue, but it was a deliberate choice by them to limit the amount of people, however they did it, whether it was by not closing servers or we don't know how they did it, but however they did it,
Yep.
limit the amount of people that could be in a map. And I don't know about EU. I haven't played on EU since I first started playing this game.
Mhm.
But in NA, that meant the maps, especially the first 2 days. Day 3 it got better. Day 4 last night when I was playing it, it looked like it was much better. But the first 2 days, completely empty, like dead empty, and to the point where we were running into each other, Merrick. Like
Yeah, over and over. In fact, I
that
kept
was
seeing my friends, and
yes.
that worried me.
That was what worried me the most because that didn't happen in POF. It didn't happen in Heart of Thorns, to my knowledge. I mean, I have a
Yep.
bigger friends list now than I did back then, but we just kept running into each other over and over and over, and that
Mhm.
made me think the game is just dead. Maybe there's nobody playing this.
Right. So that's going to bring me to the next subject here. And I don't want you guys to think that we're harping on the negative side of VOD when we get
I
into the
love
meat and
VOD.
potatoes. Yeah, let me just preface Junie, Cryptic, and I love this expansion. In fact,
Mhm.
I'm going to go into how surprised I am at how much I love this expansion. They really surpassed my expectations.
Mhm.
But not not only was it a missed opportunity to release on 2/22/22, right? Not only that, but I'm going to go out on a limb here, give a hot take. I think this might be the single worst time in the
Yeah,
last 4 years to release an expansion.
absolutely.
Absolutely is. It is
Mhm.
a terrible time
Yep.
to release an expansion. So not only has everyone that I've talked to who plays Guild Wars 2 or likes Guild Wars 2 has said good things about it because they have. Literally everyone. I don't know anyone who's like, oh, this expansion sucks. I'm not playing this anymore. I've
Mhm.
not heard that once. But even with my extensive list of Guild Wars 2 friends that I'm looking at on Discord, right? These people that I know I met in Guild Wars 2, they love Guild Wars 2. They've been waiting for new content. They've been complaining about a lack of content this entire time. All those people, I scroll up and down my Discord, and what do I see? The day of, the day after the release of an expansion we've been waiting for 4.5 years, I see some of my friends playing the new Destiny 2 expansion. I see
Mhm.
people playing the new Endwalker Final Fantasy expansion. I see people playing Elden Ring. I see
Lost
people
Ark.
playing Lost Ark.
Mhm.
I mean, this is maybe one of the craziest times in the history of online multiplayer gaming that I can
Mhm.
remember in memory. It is insane to me. So even these people that I know enjoy the expansion, even people that I know have been looking forward to this, they
Mhm.
are so spread thin.
Mhm.
Day of, I was watching people hop off to go play the other game they were really excited about. I mean, like, what was the game plan here?
Mhm.
I think I get so emotional about it and upset about it because I want the game to succeed more than most. I love Guild Wars 2. I want this to be the saving grace, right? And for me, it's like if we're gonna wait 4.5 years, dude, wait another 6 months. I don't know. I would have waited for a bigger fanfare. Also, I think it's on Steam now. Question mark? Like, where were the fireworks? Like, I
Yeah,
thought that was going to be a
I
big
don't. I
thing.
don't think it is on Steam. I think
Somebody said it was.
I thought it was, but then I looked it up. It looks like it's on Steam, but they haven't released it yet. It doesn't. It's just sitting there.
Oh, interesting.
I'm looking now.
Yeah, Guild Wars 2. So Guild Wars 2 is on Steam right now, but it just says to be announced. You can just add it to your wish list. So
Yeah, I see. Free, but to be announced.
Yeah.
Oh, they
It-
canceled the Steam release to focus on EOD.
Yeah, they did that last year, right?
Yeah.
It was gonna be a big release on Steam, and they decided not to. And I think most of us felt like that was a good idea, right? It's like they were releasing it on Steam at maybe the lowest point that ArenaNet had ever had. This was
yeah.
last year when everything was going bad.
Mhm.
And they had finally like just announced right after that we're gonna do EOD. It's like, yes, put all your eggs in the one basket. Let's make EOD kick ass, and let's then release it on Steam. Have like a, that's a form of marketing. I think what
Mhm.
we always sort of complain about with Guild Wars 2 is it's like this hidden gem that nobody knows about. But like any opportunity to like drum up some enthusiasm, like throw it on Steam, right? This is an opportunity to get some big hype behind the game. And I think this is a factor. I think it was a bad decision. I wish they would have waited.
Yeah,
Or
I wish they
done it
would've.
earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. They definitely.
I mean,
should've.
this is probably not a popular opinion at all, but I do understand why it's not good that there's no players around in these maps. But it did actually give me a pretty unique experience when we were playing it
loves
that
it.
first day.
Yeah.
I mean, just on an immersion level, I for this expansion, I actually turned off, and I don't usually do this, but I turned off enemy, NPC,
Nameplates.
player, character nameplates, all of those to make it seem a little bit more immersive, because I expected to just have a sea of player names everywhere. It makes it feel more like you're the actual commander. So maybe that's what they were going for, and they really did keep these. They have like tons and tons of instances.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
and-
maybe that's what they intended, but it certainly hasn't panned out that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Well,
know. I don't know if
For
they
meta
intended to
events, right? Like you
kill the
can't
meta
do that
events,
for
yeah.
meta
Yeah,
events. So you have
yeah.
to fix the meta events portion.
But there
of
is
that.
a meta event in every zone,
Yeah.
right? So this is important from the beginning. Immersion is great, but if people can't complete the content they want to complete, it's as bad as a story being broken.
Yeah,
you know?
no, absolutely. Like, I mean, I wonder if they could have done instances where when you walk near a meta event, then all of a sudden you see other people.
Maybe. I mean,
That
I
could
think
have been an option.
I think your solution is actually probably a good one, especially with all the Jade tech that is everywhere. It works in the city, but outside of the city, it is kind of like it's useful in a lot of cases, but it is cluttering. Like it's
Mhm.
I don't know. It takes away from the beauty, especially the nameplates. That's what the main thing is. So I think your solution actually kind of solves some of those issues, Junie, and may be the best solution. But I'm not to change the subject, but you were talking about feeling like the commander. Obviously, we don't want to talk about story spoilers here, but if anybody who's played the story with someone else, and you are the person joining the story, you can't do anything.
Nope. And I mean, that's not just EOD, right? That's just like the Guild Wars
Yes.
2 storytelling experience. Like
That's
we've been doing that for
something-
years.
Yes, that's something Marek and I have a lot
I
of
turned to her,
experience.
do you want to be the commander of this one? Like I was last time. She's
We
like,
used
nah,
to.
just go for it.
We used to swap back and forth in previous expansions. Sometimes I would just be like, hey, no, it's fine. I'll just like come in as the second person. This expansion so far, we have actually been unpartying and going in alone.
Mhm.
And I think it's been better because it makes you feel a little bit more connected.
I mean, if you want to know the truth, like these days, and especially like coming from Final Fantasy, right? Or even World of Warcraft, because of the way they do storytelling, I think while I might be able to dream up ways that storytelling experience in a cooperative way could be done better, I'm just kind of grateful that it exists at all.
Yeah.
I think that's the overarching feeling that I feel. This is not on a list of complaints. That's like way down the list, because for me, the ability to go through story, because you get credit. Maybe you don't say anything. Maybe you don't get talked to or pointed at or whatever is going on, but you get credit for that story completion. So you and your wife or your girlfriend or your best buddy or whatever, you guys can actually do story content together. In World of Warcraft, there's not that individualized story content. Like you're not the commander. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In Final Fantasy, you're totally the commander. the Warrior of Light, but every 5 seconds you have to de-group and go into a solo instance to do story content. So as far as that goes, yeah, I agree. It could be done better, but I really do. I like the opportunity to play a co-op experience.
Yeah, and the story is good. We won't go into
Good,
spoilers.
good. It's really good. It's stunning. Like with how lackluster I have felt like it's been
Yeah.
for a little while.
Oh,
I
yeah.
am stunned at how into the story I am.
I mean, that is the biggest. I think that is the biggest thing for me is that it compared to how like we've just been nosediving on story in these last few years. That this story is way better than what we've been getting previously.
Yeah.
And I'm actually interested and invested in the characters.
Yes. Who's your favorite character?
I can't say
What?
spoilers. Sorry.
Oh no.
Yeah, there's a couple characters I really like that I feel like are spoilers.
Yeah, that would be a spoiler. Yeah, that's true.
But I will say one thing though. I nitpick at stories. I always do. So
That's
I'm
true.
gonna set aside the nitpicking. I'm gonna set aside the nitpicking. So with the nitpicking aside, this is a great story. With the nitpicking included, it's just a good story. Setting aside the nitpicking, this story still has one problem, even though I think it's a great story. I think ArenaNet still has problems writing villains. I won't elaborate on that because of spoilers, but do you guys also feel that overall ArenaNet has had this problem writing, like how to write a villain's motivations? How to express them to the player, to make them feel empathy and care for that villain?
Well, maybe not empathy and care, but like an understanding of motivation. Yeah,
Yeah,
like background motivation
exactly.
for
Yeah,
what they're
yeah.
doing.
I don't just want a comic villain, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
that's what we have here in EOD, but it's kind of remnant of that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Guild Wars 2 has always struggled with that. I mean, always. I think all the way back to Heart of Thorns, Mordremoth was just kind of this enigma. We never really interacted with him.
I mean, so that's true, but I believe like at least with the Elder Dragons, like the Elder Dragons themselves are forces of nature. They're elemental, right? Like I think part of their allure was that they were so above and beyond mortal ambition, right?
Mhm.
It wasn't as if it was something that they were doing for some diabolical plot to take over the world. These were shadows of the Colossus monsters, right? These giant forces of nature that are just wrecking because that is how they were designed. In fact, we're finding out more about that in this story than we ever had before. It's fascinating actually to see where that comes from. I'll just tell you guys right now, and Lara's in chat. Hi Lara, thank you so much for the raid. Loranity's been playing Final Fantasy, and so I can say I've been getting like diabolical Lalafell vibes. Like you just learn not to trust people that are under 2 feet tall. Like just absolutely maniacal.
Oh,
So
man.
I don't know, dude. Like I see what you're saying, and if it was
Mhm.
a novel, maybe it would be a thing. For me, I kind of like the elements that have been connected to past story. I know that we
Mhm.
don't want to get too much into detail, right? But like my Trin, that story is
Mhm.
awesome. The
Yeah.
involvement
Oh, yeah,
of
that's my favorite.
Anka and the relation with the Thama Nova reactor, right?
Mhm.
And the Aether Blades and the stuff like that. Like I've been enjoying those elements coming out. By the way, now that we have 100 people in chat, how many people caught my Trin's vibrator in in her apartment? I know. I don't listen. It's Guild Wars 2. They did it. I didn't do it. It's there. Did you guys catch that? That was the thing. In fact,
I
I,
did
I
not
want to
catch
give a
that.
shout out to ArenaNet in general. There's been more natural speech, more cursing,
Yes.
more direct dialogue, more inclusion, and more risque elements.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
dude, I've seen some people not believing me in chat, but it's there. When you go to her room, you see all of her cats, and you see the kitty litter in the little kitty litter thing, and you find what is definitely what I said a moment ago that my wife is
Okay,
already
now we
mad at me
can't
for
say
saying. Well, I said it
it.
once and she got really upset. I actually have a picture because I posted it in disbelief in my Discord last night. So
This
Cryptic, you
is
talk for a
true.
second while I find it.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely are being more. I don't want to say progressive. Maybe that's not the right word, but
Oh,
they.
it is. I mean,
Oh, okay.
maybe not only progressive, but also progressiveness. We'll talk about that too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the speech is very more natural. Everything, everything just feels like you are part of a world when you're hearing other people talk. And even just random NPCs, like that's definitely something I give them complete credit for. And even NPCs that you interact with later, I found it funny. I can't say their name because of spoilers. They actually are like, "Hey, are you lost? Like, can I just guide you to places you may need to go to?"
Mm-hmm.
So it was
Mm-hmm.
just really, I just found that very interesting that they are they see you, the characters around you see you as a part of the world instead of just, you know, I don't
Yeah,
know, just this mythical commander or whatever walking through the world. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I don't know, like, I feel like they've gotten good at storytelling, even just in the cutscenes, the way the characters interact. It feels more cinematic, doesn't it? Like they got these camera angles, you're looking at their mouths moving in this weird way, like you're coming up upon a conversation that is
Mhm.
happening in private and they're like speaking this. It feels more like a movie than it ever has.
Mhm.
So the immersion level is there right away. I love all the characters, right? Like none of the characters in this game, I don't know, man. Like Timey can carry it by herself. I just love her. She's just absolutely amazing. Timey and Goric are just incredible. But so far, where I am in the story, and I'm at about where you are, Cryptic. I just got to Mori Village in the southeast of Echovault. It's just really good. Yeah, I see Lara saying it was just a mystery machine. Yeah, it's a vibrating mystery machine under a pile of clothes. And when you reach for it, she goes, "Hey, don't touch that."
Mhm.
It was listen, it's good. But to speak about the being more progressive, I mean, we should talk about the fact that there is an absolutely indisputable non-binary character. Right? Like that's sort of a huge thing. Like they've always been progressive. There are lesbian relationships, there are homosexual relationships of all kind. There are all sorts of different things being included, but I think this is probably one of the first times, so definitely the most direct, that there has been the inclusion of a obviously indisputable non-binary they them pronoun thing. Like ArenaNet makes effort on all of these fronts. And so, like I think that deserves at least some comment.
Phoenix said there's a non-binary character in Lion's Arch.
Ah,
Perhaps I've always thought ArenaNet has been good with that kind of stuff, and not just
mhm,
good on both fronts, right?
'cause they were
Good
digging that
for
10 years ago.
Yeah, good for being progressive, good for including this in your game, but also it just feeling like it's a part of the world, you
There it
know?
is.
It's
Yeah,
just a
yeah.
part of the world. This is just
They're not
normal.
beating you over the head with it.
Yep, exactly. Like because this is what it should be. It should just be normal. This is just normal. This is a
Absolutely.
part of life.
Nobody should feel like it's bad. Nobody should feel like it's forced.
Mhm.
This should be inclusive, and I feel like ArenaNet really does that very well. Oh,
Yes.
aid worker Saya. Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out. I've not seen that before. Yeah, Royal OMG, ArenaNet's hearts for the inclusion. Absolutely, dude. That's in the world we live in today, it's awesome to see a gaming company that we all love being at the forefront of that.
Absolutely.
Especially when you can get really mad at some other gaming companies right now for some similar things that are just really, really, really bad.
Yeah, the world we live in, man. Let's.
I know.
But
That's a
we should.
different podcast.
It's a different
So
podcast, and we should move on to something that is not as decisive as that, but maybe a little bit. Fishing.
Oh my
fishing!
gosh, the fishing is so good in this
Actually, I'm sorry.
game.
We're gonna end the stream right now so I can just go
Wait, what?
fishing.
No, stop. Okay.
Fishing.
So, I mean,
Okay, well, let's have Judy start.
I
Your
actually have
feelings on fishing.
on fishing. I mean, I do have some plans of when Merrick streams Guild Wars 2 that I will have a little tiny corner of my gameplay, which will be fishing
You mean
all the
like in the
time.
bottom right corner where you are
Yes,
right now?
all fishing all the time.
I'm starting to
24
realize
hour fishing
Judy's
stream.
just obsessed with fishing. Like
I
she likes
mean,
fishing in every game. She
I
likes
do.
She
fishing in
does.
real life. She made a fisherman character,
In
fisherwoman in D and
D&D.
D. You're
I
so
Someone
know.
into
get this
fishing.
woman a
It's
fish.
nice.
And
Yeah.
none of it is planned, so it must be like the subconscious, like
Yeah.
fishing,
Mhm.
passion that I have.
Mhm.
I think it's excellent. It keeps surprising me. So when I first saw the fishing, I was like, oh, okay, this is just like a horizontal version, slightly easier than Stardew Valley, but they
But
really
engaging.
but engaging. But I mean, Stardew Valley's fishing is really engaging too. But
Virus,
then all of a
no.
sudden they kept adding more things. For instance, the boats. I think that's fantastic. Just being able to like be on the boats. Wonderful addition, which really added to the fishing. The way they have the different sites, the way they've incorporated the fishing into the maps and into the world, I
And
think
previous
really, and previous maps
I was
really
getting desert
brings it,
fish.
like it adds something to it. It is not just the mini game, which is the case in many other things like Stardew Valley.
Well, okay, many other things like Stardew Valley, but
And
let's
and
compare to
Elder
other
Scrolls.
MMOs.
Okay, so Elder Scrolls Online,
Nope.
they're fishing.
Yep, every other game has got fishing. None of them is it a mini game.
Right. None of it
I
is at
was
this level.
thrilled about this. I don't know how many of you guys play Stardew Valley, but I don't actually like Stardew Valley. I don't knock it for anyone who likes it. Junie plays the crap out of it. I don't enjoy it, but I love the fishing. Like the little mini game is just a saving grace for me. I didn't know what to expect with fishing, right? I mean, we should talk about it. HOT that comes out, we talked about it earlier. It redefined the game, not just in difficulty, right? They're like, let's do raids. Let's have all the monsters kick your butt all of a sudden. Let's up the difficulty level of this whole game. And HOT revolutionized the way in which we experience the beautiful worlds that ArenaNet makes, right? Like the world designers for ArenaNet are top notch, break every other game, in my opinion. And the 3D verticality of the game was added with HOT, right? It sort of redefined the entire game. POF mounts, right? Or what I've been calling the joy of movement. In this game, just getting from point A to point B. Like, I'll give the best example ever. When you get a new quest and you open your map and you're like, oh God, it's so far away. I'm like, yes. Like, I enjoy the travel. I'm going to roller beetle as far as I can, and then I'm going to get to the highest peak, and I'm going to griffin my way over there. Like, the joy of travel makes it fun on long distance trips instead of a pain in the butt. And that was created by POF. The new expansion comes out, and they're like, we redefined the game twice. We're going to do it again with fishing. And I don't know what I expected, but I probably expected to hate it. I think I was really geared to be disappointed. And the mini game has added so much, not just the fact that there is a mini game, but the mini game increases in difficulty, right? Based on the difficulty of the fish that you're catching. This is the only game that, like Junie said, that has a boat that you can go out into the ocean. As far as I know, it's the only MMO that allows you to do that. And you can just sit there and have a blast with this. For me, it's 10 out of 10. They nailed fishing. What are you laughing at?
Well, like you said, though, right? Because Guild Wars 2 has always really gone above and beyond to make the world immersive and to make exploration rewarding, right? We talked about this last week on the podcast in regards to Lost Ark, how they really kind of tried for that as well under the fact that they're, not a traditional MMO. But even with Guild Wars 2, and this isn't really a spoiler. I was in one of the maps just last night, and I was running around, and I saw this rock, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go look at this rock." For some reason, it just called to me.
Great story.
The rock was calling to me, and I was not disappointed because when I got to that rock, it turned into a treasure chest, and that makes exploration really cool. I think that's fantastic that they put that in.
That's sweet story, Junie.
That was really adorable. That was such a Junie story, wasn't it? It was freaking adorable. I wanna shout out Raukion, who's first time chatter. What's up, man? Welcome to the stream. He says, I'm fishing since 1 a.m. It's now 4 a.m. here to catch only one fish, and I'm still here. I'm crying. So obviously there are some fish enthusiasts out there. There's a lot of collections, right? Achievements. Guild Wars 2 is really good at that completionism stuff, right? That gets us excited to go and do that kind of thing. I saw Knight, our buddy Knight, was talking about the angler hat and the angler vest or whatever that makes it look like you're actually a fisherman. I think they put the elements in there to really make that system fun. And like I said, they went backwards. I was going through a POF to get hero points, and I couldn't help myself. I was like trying to rush, get all my hero points done so I could get the new release back and then go back to the expansion, right? I didn't want to be in POF. I wanted to be in Cantha. But as I'm running from HP to HP, I stop and I see rare desert fish. I'm like, what? There's desert fish? And I ran over and I started fishing. It is just an enjoyable experience. Hats off to ArenaNet. I don't know. There was a board meeting somewhere, right? You got to think about this. Somewhere in the office of ArenaNet, they were like, guys, it's been years. We have to do another expansion. We need a game changer. We've got to save everything. Ideas. And someone said fishing. And then the room said, yes, let's do this. And like, I just can't believe that that's true. And it ended up being awesome. Like, you got to give him points for that, man. That blows my mind.
So I mean, I love fishing. I do think that is the best implementation of an active fishing system. We've talked about this before. As much as I love fishing, I would have loved there to have been a passive option too. Just something that I can throw my line
other
out
MMOs.
there. Yeah, like other MMOs. Like something I can throw my line out there and just sit back and, maybe watch some people sailing by on the ships, or, like I don't know, just eat a sandwich or something, do something,
Kick your feet up, drink a
watch
beer.
Netflix. Yeah, exactly. Like do something, else while I'm doing this kind of relaxing, thing. Because let's be honest, the harder fishing spots can be, especially if you don't have the fishing power yet, can be not relaxing. They can be kind of intense, right? Like you really got to get on your game.
And I was thrilled for that. I think probably because I was so used to other games, very slow, pointless feeling fishing. I'll tell you, Junie likes fishing in every game. I never fish. Like, I want the game to have fishing for some reason. And I'll give it to Final Fantasy 14. Any Final Fantasy players out there? Final Fantasy 14 has really boring fishing, but they have like fishing raids.
They have ocean fishing. This is what Marek is speaking of.
Yeah, it's like a fishing raid. Basically, everyone gets together and goes out on a big boat in the deep ocean, and then like has to combine their efforts to fish a certain amount to get to like some crazy bonus thing, and then everyone benefits from it. It's actually kind of cool. But as far as like, am I going to stop what I'm doing and go and fish because I want to, because it's fun? This is the only MMO that has caused me to do that.
I can see Junie in Final Fantasy hearing about the fishing raid and like putting on her fisher woman hat and being like,
I mean, that's exactly what happened, right? We've actually made events, social events in the Discord for ocean fishing in Final Fantasy. So you're not far off.
I mean, going from fishing to its like logical extension, skiffs are also really awesome, right? Like me and Phoenix were talking about this last night. Traversing water on a skiff is the most enjoyable way. It may not be the fastest.
But it feels good, right?
It feels so good. It feels so good. There's something about being in the water and feeling that inertia and how the boat moves.
That's what it is. It's perfect inertia.
Exactly. Even as a passenger, most of the time I was just sitting there as a passenger. It feels so good compared to a skimmer. A skimmer just feels like you're just, I don't know, it feels wrong in a way, right? You're just kind of like floating.
It has its own inertia too, that it's unique. But you're right. Like, I don't think I would have thought to complain about it until the skiff, but the skiff is just done so well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I loved the skimmer. But once you get into a skiff, you're like,
is great.
My God. Once you get into the skiff, it is amazing. It's such an amazing. You could just even chill there and just relax in the water, and it's just an amazing feeling. And yes, Phoenix is right. There's some weird physics with the skiff that I guess. Yeah, so we were traversing to a new story point in the skiff, and I was a passenger. And
you need to lose a few pounds, bro. Did you sat on the wrong side of the boat and flipped it over? That's what she's saying.
You can actually flip a boat over in Guild Wars 2?
There was 3 people in the boat. It was myself, Phoenix, and an NPC, and we were taking that NPC to a quest. I got out first, and the boat weight was then distributed all on one side, apparently.
No.
That's the way they were sitting. It can't be, but that's the way they were sitting. They were all sitting on one side, and I was sitting on the other. And as soon as I got out, the boat tipped that side and rolled over.
Is this written into the code for this?
I would love it to be. I would love it to be.
I don't think so. I think it was just a coincidence that it happened to tip the direction that they were sitting on, but it was insane. And here's the proof in the pudding, though. When I got back in the boat, because I managed to get back in the boat, it tipped back straight up.
No way.
Yes.
All right. Well,
I wish I had recorded
we'll do some science testing with that later. But we really should like give ArenaNet the credit that they deserve for I think it still goes into the joy of movement, right? Like the
Yes.
ability to captain your boat and
Mhm.
have that be an incredibly satisfying and fun experience, even without being fast. This, you know what, the same is true of the turtles. Do you guys remember riding the turtle? I know not all of you have gotten it in game, but when it was in beta, I was shocked. That was another thing. I fully admit. I was like, turtle mount, this really looks silly. It was so much fun. It was
Mhm.
fun to ride. It was fun to drive. And I think whoever they got over there working on these systems,
Mhm.
it's like they knock it out of the park, man. How many other games do you go to and you want to just strangle somebody? Like, why is the movement so awkward?
Yeah.
Because Final Fantasy, Elder Scrolls, the other like two of the other really big games out there, right? Like
Mhm.
the movement engine
Yes.
is terrible.
Terrible. You cannot
It's
change your direction while you jump. And now that's not realistic. You can't do that
real
in
life
real
sucks
life.
too. I want to be able to
Real life
change
does
my
suck.
trajectory mid
Mid
jump
jump,
in
yes.
real life. Okay. Who do I complain to?
I think we can all agree if you could do that in real life, it'd be amazing.
It would be amazing.
And the
Yes.
fact that you can do that in Guild Wars 2 is one of the things that makes Guild Wars 2 movement so awesome. It's what makes
Yes.
their jumping puzzles so successful, right?
Yeah.
Is that ability to move midair while you're to change the trajectory of your jump. And I don't think any other MMO does that. I haven't seen one
Not one
that
that I
does
know
that.
of.
No.
In fact,
Um,
what it's doing is it's harkening back. Like somebody was
platformers.
genius. Somebody thought back, like what makes
Mario.
platformers fun? Yeah, like
Mhm.
as far back ago as Super Mario for Nintendo. Like that is an important element about it.
And
I
they
need
took
to be able to affect my trajectory mid jump. Now, the amount that you are able to affect it is variable.
Mhm.
Mario was pretty heavy, right? Like you could
Yeah.
only do it like so much. But Guild Wars 2, yeah, double jumps when yeah, double jumps would be nice.
Double
Uh,
jumps would be
that was a huge shock actually when they added that in World of Warcraft. There is a single
Actually, you can
class
kind
that
of
can
do
do
it
that.
now, though. You can kind of double jump with the mastery. I won't
You
say
mean
anything else, but
oh,
With the Jade Bot mastery, you can kind of double jump
you
now.
mean the little
Oh,
elevation thing for the Jade bot?
Yeah, you need obviously
I
to be
mean,
gliding to do it, but theoretically, if you could get your glider out, you could also because you know how when you jump, you can glide briefly if the
if
elevation is
there's
right,
even a tiny
it's just a
elevation
tiny little bit.
or a
It
tiny gap, even a
exactly.
tiny gap of the same elevation, you could
E
still get the glider out. So you're right. You probably
exactly.
could double jump now.
Mhm. But I mean, the movement is fantastic, and they took the lessons from platformers perfectly. They knew exactly what made them successful. You know, one of the key. I love. I don't watch enough of them, but I love like video game documentaries. There's not enough of them, but I watched one on Mario, and the one of the things that made Super Mario so successful. Was when they were playtesting it, people actually hated it. They actually hated playing it. They thought it was terrible,
Hmm.
and they kept coming back to people saying that when they are moving from platform to platform, it felt like they were being cheated out of success because it was tough to find the spot where they could and couldn't land. So what they did was they added a small invisible part to the end of every platform. Everywhere in
A
Mario has
lip, like an
this
invisible
lip.
lip.
Yes. Guild Wars 2 has that as well. I'm sure you've noticed that
Oh
as you do
yeah,
jumping puzzle
absolutely.
it changed Super Mario. It made it. It's one of the key things that made it successful. One of the key things that made it people enjoy it while they were playtesting it, and obviously once the game was out. And I think if Guild Wars 2 didn't have that, it didn't take those lessons from
Yeah.
platformers like being able to move when you jump. We would hate jumping puzzle if you couldn't change your trajectory when you could jump. If every time you were off by a tiny bit, landing at the platform and you fell and died, had to restart, you would hate it. And
You
they
know
took
what? I
those
would
lessons, and
never
it's
have thought
awesome.
of this, and you're so right. Like if you walk off the edge of something, I'm actually in Guild Wars 2 right now.
Yes,
You can see it.
yes, you can see it.
That's how you end up standing
Yep,
on nothing on the
yep,
edge of a ledge.
yep. And it's amazing that they took those lessons and implemented them not only so successfully, but we talked about this before. 90% of 80 to 90% of the problems we see in an MMO, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I feel like it's 80 90% are things that have already been solved before.
Yeah.
MMOs, games in general, but MMOs need to, especially MMOs, need to take the lessons
To
that have
build off one another.
yes, and
Yep.
one another and other games, and other
Sure.
successful,
Absolutely.
franchises to take these successful lessons built off. You don't have to reinvent the wheel just because you want to be a new game, right? You can take the successful stuff, implement them in your game, and the stuff that hasn't been done before, that's the stuff that you should really be trying to invent on, and because that's what's going to make your game innovative. Not trying
Yep.
to, you're not going to be innovative for getting rid of ledges on platforms, in a jumping puzzle. You're going to be annoying, and people aren't going to like you.
Yeah, reinventing the wheel for no reason is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Like in the evolution of the genre of MMO, I watched it be a thing, right? So the genre was brand new. They were kind of stealing from like D&D. There was really nothing to steal from.
Yeah.
And then World of Warcraft came out and set a standard, right? And then there was this weird era. And it still happens to this day. It was much worse back then, where games were just trying to be different from WoW for the sake of being different. And they were coming out with systems that WoW was doing better, and they were coming out with worse systems just for the sake of being different and not better. And I have a real problem with that. Like, this is a genre that is interconnected. Like, the audience is interconnected. The MMO genre player base goes from game to game. And we know that that's true now, right? Burnout is a real thing. I don't know if you guys remember when you first discovered Burnout. It was a fascinating thing, especially when the genre was so new that everyone was discovering Burnout. There was those dramatic, like everyone was like, "Oh God, yeah, you guys know what it's like to burn out on a game. You can barely look at it. It churns your stomach. You're like, ugh, I don't even want to hear the name of that game." And then you're like, back then people were like, "I'm quitting forever. And I'm giving away all my stuff, and I'm deleting my account." I mean, people used to be so dramatic, but then we all learned as a community that that's how burnout works, that it's cyclical, right? It's a cycle. And eventually you're going to come back and wish, like, all of a sudden that burnout is gone and you want to come back and check out your old game. And then you're like, "Oh, I gave away all my stuff." And so like the genre has a similar player base and a lot of similar systems. So if you're not going to improve, like Cryptic said, put the effort towards improving something that needs improving, not reinventing a wheel that doesn't need to be reinvented. But what I was talking about with Guild Wars 2 earlier being really good at is the shared group experience, that other people around you are a really good thing. I think that's something that this game has stood out to do, right? Like I'll combine a couple of points. We were talking about seeing other people being nothing but a good thing, and the ability to complete the actual story together with other people. Those two things are really solid. Somebody had mentioned, Rule Stormer said this expansion adds so many social group experiences. The skiff, fishing, the 2-player mount, all of these things are true. I think that ArenaNet should. I think if I could say that they should fix anything immediately, it would be this thing where people are very separated in the expansion, because I think bringing people together is what makes Guild Wars 2 an incredibly good game, and we've got to sort of focus on that. If anybody does find out what the deal with that is, I would love to know the actual reason.
Why the map's are empty? Or
Yeah, like if there's, because they said it's fixed, right? But I'm still not seeing it, so I'm just not sure.
I'll link
where
you the
that's gonna go.
post. I'll link you the post, but I actually went to the forum and read the post, and it really does sound like she says it's fixed, but the way that she words it makes it sound like I wish I could bring it up now and read it directly, but I'd have to dig through things. The way that she words it makes it sound like they made some changes behind the scenes to improve the situation, but this is the outcome that they had intended, and they were only tweaking it to try to bring it closer to what the players expected. But closer. I mean, I think that's why we've seen a slow increase in population. It's not that more people are playing, it's that they are slowly turning the dial back to what we expected it to be. And I mean, that to me again speaks to, I know it's tough to test server load, it's tough to play test that, but companies have the ability to do it. It's not impossible. You can create a scenario and load test. That's what load testing is.
Yep.
And for the dial to have been so much to one direction and not closer to where it should have been speaks to the fact that this needed a little more time, for all the reasons we mentioned. But I think one of the two biggest for me is this was a bad time to release. I mean, there's 20 other games out right now. Some of them MMOs, for crying out loud. When is an MMO? We had an MMO release. When does that happen? They decided to release their expansion when another MMO was releasing,
and a big one, huge record-breaking Steam concurrent user kind of level of MMO, and we saw this coming, right? Like, the game was already successful. This is something that was like this. We're talking about Lost Ark, by the way.
Yes,
Lost Ark had a very big, passionate following leading up to this. It's been out since 2019, I think, in Korea and Russia. But we saw this coming, and it's
Yes.
huge. It's true. We don't get big new releases of MMOs very often, and literally within a few weeks of it being released was this expansion.
Yeah.
So it's rough.
So yeah, there are multiple reasons for them to move it ahead. But I mean, I think despite those negatives, those missteps, we should say, lack of advertising, stuff like that, I'm still calling this expansion a success. I'm calling this expansion a success for the players. I don't know if it's a success for ArenaNet yet. I
So
think
maybe for the players that are already there,
yeah,
like
I think the player base, the people that are currently playing it, this is a success so far. We'll get to when it may not become a success. Maybe at the end of this podcast, there's another topic I want to talk about.
uh-oh.
But I think right now it's too early to call it a success for ArenaNet. I mean, we'll never know the real numbers behind the scenes, but based off of the things that they do going forward from here, we'll know, whether the writing's on the wall. And, I mean, I think because this expansion had all the potential to be a financial success, it would only have been their own doing, which is poetic. I'm not trying to smile about it because I love ArenaNet and I love Guild Wars 2, but you have to admit it is poetic that they actually release a good, successful expansion. I don't want to say actually like it's the first time. The other ones have been successful as well, but they released one that pretty much everybody is saying positive things about.
Yep.
And
Shockingly.
it will have still been a failure from a company, from a business perspective, because of their own missteps. That is like quintessential ArenaNet at this point.
The missteps being timing and marketing.
Yes, timing and marketing. Yep.
Right. So we know that they're not so great at that.
Yep.
I know that this time they really tried to be a little bit more transparent leading up to this. We sort of knew that it was coming. They were sharing more than they normally do. I think they were trying to drum up hype, but again, like I think Cryptic sort of nailed it there. There's two different criteria for how we decide the level of success for this expansion. The people that are already they're already hooked, right? The people that are active players of Guild Wars 2 or knew that they come back every time, even if they're not active. The player base that comes back every time there's a new Living World story, right?
Yep.
Every time there's a new raid, every time there's a new strike or new content, they'll come back for a little bit and then they don't again. These are active players in the way that Guild Wars 2 defines active, right? They'll come back and they'll play when there's something new. In terms of that, I would say that it is a 10 out of 10 universally successful expansion. Again, I mentioned it earlier. I know a lot of people that have said a lot of negative things about Guild Wars 2 for the last 4 years, and I have not heard a single person say, I hate this expansion. I'm totally disappointed. I'm quitting this game. I've not heard it. And and this is with a lot of people that I think would have loved to be able to say it. There's just those people out there that just, they would have been excited to talk a bunch of crap. But I think that everyone who plays this game loves this expansion. But there are a lot of people being toured to different games. And the other side of the coin is, are you able to get people who have quit this game to come back? And are you able to get players who never played this game to come try it? And that is an entirely different thing. And, for those of you who are out there every day streaming this game or just playing, like, are you seeing a huge influx of new players? My guess, and Cryptic's right, they'll never release numbers, right? Nobody does that. No gaming companies like to do that. But I really don't think it has nailed that. I think that that's probably a big miss.
And we've talked about, I guess to segue into our next topic, we've talked about missed opportunities in the past as far as trying to, monetize on what the game currently does and things that they can do in the future. I don't think we see some of that here. We're going to get skins for fishing, for skiffs, for jade bots. So we are going to get new skins. That is going to be what I think provides them the most revenue going forward.
Okay.
As it has in the past.
How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm fine with it. This is Guild Wars 2. I've never had a problem with their monetization.
I just got into a discussion with somebody about this the other day, because they can see that it's sort of a build up to that, like, the skiff and in fact, somebody said specifically when you press H, you can see the list of things under your hero panel. And now there's several more things. And so, like, to them, that was a take that there's going to be a ton of new stuff that they're going to be sort of money grabbing in the gem store. And I definitely have feelings about that, but I'm curious about how other people feel about that. Are people upset about the concept of skiff skins and Jade bot
No,
skins.
I love that there's skip skins. I mean, that's like I love that stuff. Why not? I mean, it doesn't really affect the gameplay, and if somebody wants to add something and customize their character, customize their boat, I mean, that just is all positive. However, Flying Triangle mentioned something that has been annoying me in the game that I forgot about was the fact that in all the cutscenes, that little black lion icon is the only
Yeah.
thing that is sitting there. Why you need a link to the gemstone during a cutscene, I do not know.
Yeah,
It's because
that's a
they
little silly.
changed the way the icon works, so it's a whole nother. They again playtest. Come on, guys, playtest this.
Yeah. Well,
um,
these are things that'll probably be changed.
and speaking of which, my ultra wide brother Merrick, have when the screen fades to white, like let's say, because they changed the way leaving an instance works now, right? So if
Mhm.
you're getting close to the edge of an instance, it will fade to white and teleport you back instead of killing you or resetting or whatever
Oh,
the
yeah.
different things they did
Resets
before.
you backwards. Yeah.
When that happens, do you get a white bar in the middle of your screen while the fade is happening? Like I know it fades to white completely, and then you're fine when you get back in there. But as soon as the fade starts, I get a giant white bar in the middle of my screen,
I don't
and
think I've
nobody else has
noticed that,
said that has
but
happened to them.
are you rocking the DX11?
No, I'm I'm
So I
I'm I'm
am.
DX. Okay, I'm DX9, but I'm using DX9 to DX12 conversion mod, which is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
never got that to work the way that I wanted to, and I've been
Mm,
having an issue for a long time. Junie can tell you, there's a reason why, because I played Guild Wars 2 so much, there's a reason why we ended up working with a separate PC for a dedicated streaming PC, and it's
mhm,
because Guild Wars 2 takes up, for me, 90 to 97% of my GPU.
mm,
It is insane, right? Like that should not be the case. And so to try to fit Streamlabs on there, which also runs on partially your GPU, it ends
mm,
up being like an absolute monster. But I just recently swapped to the DX11 beta thing,
mm,
and it dropped down to like 27 to 32% GPU. I've never
mm.
had any lag ever since. I zone super fast, and I have not been kicked. I haven't had any crashes or anything. So I don't know if for those of you out there, if you've been having issues and you have not tried the DX11 for a while, I'd encourage you to try it again.
I'm gonna have to give it a shot. I'm definitely going to give it a shot.
I wanted to read what Sleepy Pandy said. Hi, Sleepy Pandy. Talking about new players coming to Guild Wars 2, though, in comparison to most other MMOs, I feel like Guild Wars 2 is the most new player friendly. Personal opinion, of course. Well, it is a personal opinion, and it is one that I absolutely share with you. I think that Guild Wars 2 is the single most new player friendly game that I've ever come across in the MMO genre. This game's been out for 10 years, right? Almost 10 years. There's all this new content, the new expansion, and yet every time I ever have somebody drop by my stream, it's like, I'm thinking about trying this game. I know that I'm very sensitive to the feeling of like, I'm behind. I won't be able to catch up. How do I play with my friends who've been playing for a long time? How impossible is it to raid? How arduous and unpleasant is the leveling experience? Like all of these things, Guild Wars 2 has magically sort of avoided, right? Like leveling from 1 to 80, I think leveling in this game is probably the single most fun leveling experience I've ever had in an MMO. I think Junie talked about like the joy of exploration, like exploration being rewarded. The zones are cool and interesting. If you see a cave and you're like, hey, I want to go back there. I don't have a quest to go back there, but I just kind of want to. The chances are something awesome is going to be back there. Like that's not true in other games. The story is streamlined. There's not a lot of monotony. There's not overly large amounts of reading without voice acting. Once you get up to max level, the gear treadmill doesn't exist. If you wanted to make a character today, in fact, my good friend Virus in there, by the way, the Doctor underscore Virus there, he started playing Guild Wars 2 very recently. And he wanted to raid. He met some of us in the stream. He wanted to raid. He basically leveled in a couple of days, got some exotic gear, and walked right into raids with us. And it's been raiding ever since. If you want to skip things, you can. You can go back and do them later. Everything is account wide. So you don't even have to worry about like alts versus main character investment and all that stuff. Like, I completely agree with you. And for a new expansion like Cantha or EOD to come out, uh, what my hope would be is that the flashy new stuff catches somebody and says, hey, come and give this a shot. And then even though they may be off of it, because I think Guild Wars 2 does have a pretty linear story, much in the way that Final Fantasy does, where, in order to really do Cantha, you kind of gotta do the entire game's worth of story leading up to it, right? But while you're doing that, you can do that at your own pace and still raid with your buddies every Saturday.
That is such an important point because we have come across this. We've been playing so many different MMOs lately, and Guild Wars 2 is the only one that doesn't cause this problem. Final Fantasy 14, you have to get through the MSQ in order to raid with your friends.
Which is no small
Or
task.
no small task at all. It's basically the entire game. Or you have to do a skip. You can buy a skip, but then you don't get to experience that content in the same way again.
Yep.
Same with even like Lost Ark. You know, there's end game content, but you have to get through everything to get there. Guild Wars 2, you know, Marek and I are in part 3 of the End of Dragon's story right now, so we're about halfway through. But he was able to do strike missions today and yesterday with our friends, and that's a huge deal. That lets you experience the story at your own pace, and it doesn't interfere with you getting to play the social side of the MMO or the end game content.
So what that allows you to do is do the social element, right? Anything your friends are doing, you can go and do with them, right? The new strikes, the raids, dungeons, whatever, meta events, you can do all that. You can do that with your friends whenever you want to do that. And then you can go back and continue your own progression at your own pace through the story, right? It scales with you and everything. So in my opinion, there's very few games out there that can even compete. Now, I should say what Praise QT said there says that it's irrelevant if ArenaNet does nothing to bring new players in. I agree it's the best, but doesn't matter much if no one knows that. And that is true, right? We should give praise where it's deserved and criticism where it's deserved too. Unfortunately, streaming Guild Wars 2, I used to have this happen all the time. Someone would come in and be like, hey, what game is this? I'm like, it's Guild Wars 2. They're like, what? I thought that game was dead. It's like, what do you mean it's dead? And like, we just got a new expansion announced. It's really exciting time. Like all of this stuff. Like there's so many moments where you just kind of want to shake arena and be like, guys, you've got one of the the best MMO that has ever been made. And I feel like it's a total diamond in the rough, but it's a complete secret out there. And I have to like drag my friends kicking and screaming to try it. Almost never does it happen that if I get someone to download the game and play it, I think it's only happened once in all the years that I played this game that the friend that I got to try it was like, you know what? I really don't like it. I don't like the combat system. And that's because that person is a much less action-oriented combat gamer, somebody that's not into modern gaming, someone that's back from the days of like EverQuest. I want to stand still and push a couple buttons. So I wasn't surprised. But in general, if you can get people to come and play this, they love it. But how to get people out there to look at it, you know? It's a tough one.
Advertising where it's all at. So, I mean, I think, you know, ArenaNet's always been bad at that. And I mean, we'll see, you know, there's nothing really we can do about it unless they decide to hire Merrick TV as their PR person. So.
Yo, yes, I accept the position. Thank you very much, ArenaNet.
I will say, I would like to go back to what Diamond and Phoenix was talking about the skins. I mean, I think most people are fine with the skins in Guild Wars 2. Like Diamond was saying, though, they just need to, as long as they provide an alternative in game. You know, we need more free alternatives in game for good skins. You know, I would definitely, I don't know what, I'm sure there are skins behind achievements for some of these things like skiff and fishing. I hope so. And if there's not, I feel like that's where the issue is.
That's fascinating to me that you said, I'm sure there is, because I don't know what precedent it is that you're reaching for that makes you think that that's true.
When has that ever been the case?
It's never been true.
Okay. But think of all the whenever specialization comes out, right? We get an armor skin, a weapon skin,
specialization weapon.
Yep, and then a collection specialization weapon skin. Yep. So you've got, those are 3 skins per specialization. I mean, what we have 9 classes, I think. I hope I'm right with that.
We do. Yep.
And then, you know, so 3 times 9 is a lot of things.
That's true. But in terms of
but we've never
glider skins, mount skins, anything like that in the in fact, it is such the rarity when we see something even under like the novelties section, right? Like we get very excited when there's a chair out there.
But maybe just not achievements. Like there are things that there are things that vendors will sell you. Like think of like the Choya tonics and stuff like that, right? Like there are novelties that you can get, the Doom chair and, you know, things like that, right? Like, I don't know. I think my argument is that it exists in the game, that there are free alternatives for pretty much, like if you want the thing of personas in
ESO?
Elder Scrolls,
Personalities.
Yeah, personalities.
Yeah.
You know,
You know how
if you
much I
want
love
one of
those.
those, can you get one free?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, you can? Okay.
There's several in the game that come from in-game accomplishment. In fact, two of the flashiest, coolest ones come from some of the hardest raid content of its
Mm,
time.
okay.
So
Well,
that's what I love. In fact, if we're gonna even have this discussion, I feel like we got to ask what the best version of this sort of like freebie or this cash store sort of thing is, and it's got to be ESO, right? Because they do sell all that kind of stuff, everything like that, skins and vanity items and all that kind of stuff. But then there is also a certain amount that you're going to get from actual in-game raids,
Oh,
so
Elder Scrolls Online does it fantastically. Their
except for the
entire
RNG stuff, though.
well, the RNG stuff is a little annoying,
There's a
but
little bit of that.
yeah, but it's just a couple of skins. I feel like their model is so good though. Like they make you want to buy the subscription and then they give you their cash shop currency as part of your subscription. So it's
Mm.
kind of like having the lifetime Star Trek Online membership.
oh wow,
But that
yeah.
that takes a long time to pay off. So let me give you like a framework for how this works. In Guild Wars 2 is free, right? But every time there's a new expansion or whatever, you might have to buy it. In between, as long as you're actively playing, you get the Living World story chapter. So they make the vast lion's share of their money from, vanity and convenience items that come from the gem store.
Mhm.
In ESO, you do have to buy the game. It's a pay to own kind of game, but there is a subscription in the game. What it effectively means is that there is a never-ending trial. So you can always go back and play the game just like in Guild Wars 2. Like if you ever want to go back and play WoW, you got to be like, how much do I know I want to play this? I got to pay $15 to even look at the game and see if I hate it.
Mhm.
In Guild Wars 2, you're like, yeah, it's been a while, right? Let's go check it out. Or there's a new Living World story chapter. I'll just hop in and see if I even like this game. That's a really good thing. ESO allows you to do that same thing, and they
Mhm.
make a lot of money from their gem store, the same kind of like convenience and a utility kind of thing. But there is a subscription fee that you can pay instead. And if you do that, it's incredibly incentivized. It unlocks every DLC that has ever come out for the game all at once for the month that you are subscribed. And you also get like an unlimited crafting bag. So like it's like a material storage in Guild Wars 2, except it's unlimited. All these crazy things that make it so that if you're actively playing the game, you really need to get that sub. But here's the great thing. It's like $15 a month, like every other subscription thing. But on top of all the other perks, you get exactly $15 worth of gems when you subscribe.
Mhm.
I mean, like that's hard to beat, right? Like I think if I were to design a system, I would design it like that. And because I have no problem giving money to ArenaNet. I want them, I want, I'm just to give my perspective on this, I'm not mad about the skiff or the Jade bot thing. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, give me the opportunity to customize my character more. I will give you more gems, like
Mhm.
let's go. I like this game. You deserve it. In fact, I'm often complaining that there's not enough stuff in the gem store for those of us who would like to support more.
And speaking of not enough stuff in the gem store, what is something that this expansion uh could have had potentially but didn't for you? Like what's missing? What's something that you really want to say? And I think we all know what the answer is going to be.
If you would have asked me 2 days ago, I would have said raids, but I don't think that's the direction you're going in.
I mean,
You're
raids is
talking
fine.
about player housing.
Yeah, no, raids is a perfectly acceptable answer. That'd probably be my number two answer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, flying triangle with the housing. There it
There we
is,
go.
man.
Yeah,
Player housing.
yeah.
Can I just get like I mean, there's 78 people in chat. I know they're not all awake. I think we have a lot of sleepy EUs. But for those of you guys in chat, can I get like an X in chat if you would like player housing? If they announced today, hey guys, we are adding player housing to this game, would that be something you would be very excited about? Or would you be, I didn't give you an option to hate it. I guess type Y if you would be bummed. And
Yeah,
I'm making it why because why? Why would you be bummed?
a library has been a common ask. I think we had a big discussion about this in the
Ooh.
Discord. Remember, we were just
Ooh.
talking about. I don't know if you were.
Library.
I don't know if you were there, Merrick, but I think me and Saul and some other people were talking about having a library
A
in
library would
your.
help so much. I have so
Wait, did
many
Cryptic just say
books.
library?
Possibly.
We can't let that stand.
Library?
I have wanted a
Laboratory.
library as
No,
well
that's it.
because I just have books and books and books saved on on various characters, and I would love to just be able to put them in one location. That would be so nice.
And
Yeah, like Skyrim, dude. Didn't everyone build a library in Skyrim in their house?
Mhm.
Everybody did that, didn't they? It was just me. I was obsessed. I collected every book known to man.
Oh, in Skyrim,
Yes.
absolutely. I remember just piling them up and then trying to get them onto shelves and
Yeah,
everything.
and it was
Oh,
hard.
yeah, it was hard.
you know there's all this lore in Guild Wars 2 that's scattered around as books and papers and stuff, and you just end up having to
Yep.
delete it because it fills up your bank. If it went into a library, that would be awesome. And then what they can do is retroactively, anyone that has completed the achievement for any of those lore things, so those lore collection stuff, they just get all that put in there.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go back and try to find, all these books again just so you can put them in your library because you deleted them. They could just go straight in there, problem solved.
And that would incentivize additional lore books to be
Oh,
written,
true.
right? Because
Yeah.
all that stuff is great. There's people out there that love that. I talk about this often. I say constantly, right, that there's this giant pool of MMO gamers, so we sort of float from one game to another, and it's true, right? But there are differences in communities. There are some people who play Guild Wars 2 who are never going to want to go and play WoW. And there's some WoW players who are never going to want to go and play Guild Wars 2, right? They can represent different elements. And I've said it before, I'll say it 100 times. World of Warcraft players, by and large, would not care about player housing. That is just not what that game is about. In Guild Wars 2, I think it is the absolute perfect community for player housing. I think people love that kind of stuff. They even get into the guild hall decorating, which is a shadow of what, it could be for individual player housing. Even the that place in POF that's like kind of like a little zone hub that you sort of build up, right? I forgot what it's even called.
Oh yeah. What is
Lights
that?
Refuge or something. I don't know. I forgot what it is. But but to actually have individual housing where they could sell stuff on the gem store, you could slay Zaitan and get a giant Zaitan mounted head and stick it on your wall, right? At home over your dinner table. Finish your legendary weapon, right? And then mount that thing and on the wall looking awesome. Like, these are the players that would enjoy this. This is a game where fashion and peripheral achievement, right, is really important because there isn't like a vertical ladder of achievement in this game, right? Like, everybody's sort of at the same level, so you kind of come up with your own goals. I think this game is ripe for that.
Yeah, this game could have library, it could have an armory, it could have, all for cooking for all your cooking stuff, and you could have every crafting station there in your house. And then somebody else mentioned, I don't know if it was Saul or Azure, we were having a big discussion about this. What about a menagerie, right? Where you could keep all your mounts
Minis and mounts.
Exactly.
How nice would that be?
And
Yeah.
what if you could go collect animals in the world that are non-aggressive, right? Like the bunnies everywhere you see. Wouldn't you like to collect some bunnies?
Yeah, the most they do is let you collect the cats, right, in Guild Wars 2. But Elder
And in
Scrolls
your home
on
instance, you can have the cat. What is it? Lady
yeah.
Wisteria Whiskington or whatever.
Well, you can have a bunch of cats that show up in your home instance, but that's not really what you're talking about. Like, the closest thing to that is in Elder Scrolls, where you can put your mounts and your pets in areas in your home.
And even NPCs.
Yeah, that's true.
In the gem store in ESO, you can buy NPCs with big personalities that walk around your house and say stuff. And I just think that they really nailed that sort of like role-playing peripheral experience in an MMO. Flying Triangle said bunnies are evil, no bunnies. When was the last time you saw Monty Python and the Holy Grail?
Yeah,
got fangs. But yeah, I think player housing would have been really good. In fact, that's something they could add at any time. That's not like a missed opportunity. They could come out with that as like a pseudo expansion later, and I would buy it, and everyone would buy it, and it would be a great idea. But let's talk about raids. Let's talk about end game PvE. So let's first of all,
raids don't exist. I don't know.
Yeah, first of all, let's talk about the expectation, right? That it was sort of dying. That raids in general were being cut off. I think it's fair to say that the Guild Wars 2 community labels Guild Wars 2 as being a game, and ArenaNet as being a company that will come out with a new system and abandon an old one rather than maintain it or fix it. I think that's a nuanced discussion. I'm not saying that that's entirely true, but I think that it's fair to say that some of the long-term community would insist that that's the case. Would you
Mhm.
agree with that, Cryptic?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that, I well, probably this was the point that I was going to get to that we'll either talk about
Oh,
now or
yeah.
later.
Mhm.
Is that no, I think it's fine. And mine's a little more expanded. Is that like, ELD? We're seeing at least success with players in ELD. We'll talk about business success is another thing. Uh, can they continue this momentum? Will they continue this momentum? And not basically dropping rage, dropping fractals. Now strikes is the thing. If I haven't done any strikes, I've heard good things. I've heard.
Oh, you haven't
mm,
done them?
I have not done any
Oh,
yet.
bro, I would have dragged you through them. I did 3
Oh,
out of 4
okay.
just
All
for
right.
the
What is
podcast.
your opinion?
Okay. I love them. Love them. Absolutely was stunned at how much fun I had.
Are they difficult?
Yes, and the CMs are not implemented yet. So I went in with 10 raiders.
Mhm.
Like raiders. Like people In fact, Tiffy and me and Cag and Pew and Manster, like a lot of our friends that have a lot of experience raiding.
Mhm.
Maybe not like the tip top elite, but we are
Yeah, no,
all
I
experienced raiders.
Mhm.
And so for us, it was exciting, not frustrating, sort of very engaging in a way that only Guild Wars 2 can do, but not as messy as some of the fractal fights. I think fractals, some of the really challenging hard end game fractals, bring a level of difficulty that I love, right? It's like a level of personal expectation for you to perform your character really quickly, to react a lot, but there's so much mess going on that I feel like the way that they've increased difficulty is kind of lazy sometimes, just to make it
Mhm.
really messy.
Yeah.
I think
I
raids
mean,
are better at it. But
are you not concerned with that with the strikes? Like I heard CC is a big thing about it. Do you think
Yes,
that that is actually a good way to increase difficulty or a bandage over the
I
situation?
I do. I've been thinking a lot about this, and we might disagree.
I haven't
Ralkion, are
done it
you on
yet,
NA
so
or
I don't
EU?
know.
We're on NA. So I actually think that this is a really exciting thing. I know that there's some big changes. Change is always hard. I think what they're trying to do with the boon management, right?
Mhm.
Being dropped down to more things needing to provide boons, more 5-person boon generating things, more emphasis on CC. I think that they're trying to hybridize a lot more. I think they're going to force us to not ignore everything in the game and just take the purest form of DPS that you can take. I think they're going to require more builds to be hybrid. I think they're going to require more builds to make individual sacrifice, to be able to accomplish CC and mechanics. And I think that that's going to suck for us who have been really hardcore in this for a long time, but I think it's going to make a healthier end game in the long run. Now, I know that might be a hot take. You guys might not agree with me, but I think in the end, that is an exciting element.
Hmm.
So that's my take. That's my take. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I had to change my battery while you were saying that, so I got most of it
You bastard.
done. um, no, I mean, I agree. My only concern is that once people get the CC bars figured out, and with more supports being added into these comps anyway, right? Like,
Yeah.
like some comps I've seen have 6 supports in them. I don't think
Yeah.
that's what's going to end up being the meta, but some comps have 6 supports. I am concerned that there will be more CC available and that people will be more used to it and will be more aware. Because I'm well known for going through raids with not always CCing when I should,
You
right?
don't you don't say.
Yeah,
Who
you
would
could just.
say such a thing about you,
I mean,
Cryptic?
you're losing DPS, right? Like
It's a
I
DPS
gotta.
loss.
Yeah, it's a DPS loss, right? I mean, it's the same reason I don't dodge. It's a DPS
Oh god.
loss.
Hey, stop
But
standing in fire. Shut up. I'm top DPS.
exactly. Yeah, you can't argue with that.
The age old.
Uh,
Oh man.
no, but I mean, I think as like people, even people like me who are so concerned about DPS and doing their rotation right, and being top of the DPS meter, are accepting that because when push came to shove, if we were failing the raid because we didn't have enough CC, I would bring CC, right? I would do the thing and get it sorted. And if that is the requirement, just going into it, don't you think that it will just become a normal thing, and then people will just be able to, it will, the difficulty will just, the band-aid will have been ripped off, right? Like, oh, we have more supports, more CC, more people are doing it. Goodbye. We're back to square one almost.
Okay, okay. I see where you're going. I think that this is two separate things, right? It's like how, like, if we changed the end game requirement to be the same level of difficulty but requires something different, a bigger sacrifice for the group to be more hybrid or more inclusive of utility like CC, but the same level of difficulty. That's a separate argument for we want it to be harder, and the way that we've chosen difficulty is through CC. Is that going to be enough? I think you're right. I think right now we're going to be going through some growing pains while we're waiting for people to get used to this. I think we've already struggled with the small amount of CC required already in modern raids. Nobody wants to bring it. I think the single best thing that happened for Guild Wars 2 raids in the last year had nothing to do with ArenaNet, and was the fact that Arc DPS started reflecting CC damage. So like everyone could see how much damage somebody did to CC. That was a really good change from a raid leader's standpoint, from a raid trainer's standpoint, which I did a lot of. That was wonderful, because not only could I like call out the cryptics of the world who were not CC, be like, look at his CC, but it also made it so that I could contribute towards CC and be proud of it, right? That's what DPS players want, right? We want to like flex our skill, have it reflected on a meter for myself and everyone else to see. And all of a sudden, the ability to do a ton of damage and provide CC became much more appealing. I stopped playing Reaper every time I did Samurag and started pulling out my Shield Hollowsmith, and liked that, right? So like if that permeates endgame in a way that becomes the expectation, even if the difficulty stays exactly the way that it is right now, I would still call it a success. I think like the additional variety, because you guys know how I feel about boons. I've said this before. I think Guild Wars 2's combat system and endgame cooperative PvE environment is some of the best I've ever seen in any game ever. And yet it is almost ruined, or at least has an absolute stranglehold on it based on boons and the boon contribution, and even CC, things like that. They sort of like define what is allowed to be brought and what isn't. So we get to see varying degrees of variety and viability in raids based on those things. So in this new meta where things are going to be more boons are provided by a lot of different people, but they're only 5 man. So there's going to be like, I think there's going to be a more variety than we've ever seen. Especially since there's a whole third new classes. There's literally 33% more classes than there were before, which is insane and amazing. And this increased variety and expectation of utility in the form of CC. I think by the time the growing pains are done, you guys can quote me on this later, and I might be wrong, but I'm gonna put it out there right now. I think it's gonna lead to a healthier environment for raids than we've ever had.
I can see that with the CC and like the combo fields and stuff like that. I see. I want to agree with you with the boons. I really do. Mechanist, as an example, Mechanist exists. Mechanist gives every boon except quickness.
Quickness, yeah.
So isn't it just going to be bring 2 Mechanist and then bring 2 quickness scrappers and call it a day?
Yes. And so when I say growing pains, I don't even just mean us. I think I also mean ArenaNet. ArenaNet does things like this, right? Every time there's been a new something, there's been some ridiculous balance decision that is just absurd and eventually has to be like way dialed back, right? Like we saw it in every expansion. And so I truly don't believe that Mechanist is going to be left alone. I think it's probably going to get the hardest rework, because having played it myself, I was looking forward to Mechanist more than any other class. And I think not only is it too strong, it's also too boring. I don't actually find it that exciting to play, and I don't find it to be in line, in balance with what I believe they're trying to accomplish with Endgame. So, again, I have no insider knowledge. I am not an ArenaNet employee or affiliate, but I believe that this is sort of going against what they are hoping to accomplish. So I think it's probably going to be changed. We'll see. But you're right. As of right now, if that didn't change, it's defeated by that, right? It's too good. It's too good.
Well, that kind of goes into what Sleepy Panda and Reckham Jones were talking about. they were saying on the EU side at least that the looking for groups just already, even now in the game, what has been out for several days only,
4
they
days.
just want raid kill proof and like boon requirements and all this stuff like right from the get-go, and that makes it really intimidating and stressful for the majority of the player base.
I heard it's the same on NA. I haven't seen it myself personally, but this is always, not to interrupt you, Mary, but this has always been a problem for LFG.
Specifically for EU, though.
Yeah.
It's way worse. Yeah. Way worse.
I mean, LFG and NA, they want KP, right? Like, so they want you to ping what I consider, I can go on a rant about KP forever. They want you to ping something that is completely meaningless that most players consume, especially if they're in a guild, you want to consume it so they can build the things. You know, if you save it, it just takes up space, meaningless space in your inventory. I can go on a rant about it forever. I think the way NA does it is even dumber than EU. I don't like what EU does either. I think the raid community is so small; it's dying.
Yeah, it should be inclusive, right? It should be encouraging new people.
You know, like if you,
I'd like to do a podcast on this.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely, because we did try, like, you know, back when we were doing a lot of Guild Wars 2 trainings, like a year ago, like we really put in a lot of effort to try to make that more accessible to other people. But it's incredibly difficult because most groups out there are like super meta.
50 DKP minus. Sorry. That's Fiona. Oh, what's up, buddy? Yo, dude. He said, "Oh no, the stash looks spectacular. Please keep." No, please. Could you put up a poll in chat to help people vote for me to shave this mustache, Junie? I think we need a poll. You know, does Merrick shave the mustache or keep the mustache?
I'm pretty sure that's up to his soul. I don't know where No Point is right now.
Maybe, but I need the chat's help to help me convince him otherwise. So could you put up a poll?
I figured out why the stash doesn't match. It's not because it doesn't match your face. It's because it doesn't match your hair color. So you need to dye your stash.
Oh,
no, it's the same color, basically.
Well, my facial hair is slightly darker than my hair. That's true. But I think that's
isn't the top of your hair like looks like it was dyed or something?
Brown?
Yeah. Is your hair just always that stunning?
Brown.
It is always that stunning.
Okay.
And my mustache is just like slightly darker brown.
Maybe it's just the hue of the purple in your room that's making it look like it's.
Why is my hair doing that? The hue of the purple in my room.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, I think that we should do an entire podcast on like the raid scene and like getting into the raid scene, because again, for those of you guys who may not know me, I was a very, very active daily streamer in the raid scene in Guild Wars 2 up until relatively recently. My wife Junie had breast cancer this year, and we sort of knocked the wind out of us and we stopped being around as much. We're trying to come back now, so it's very exciting. But back then we were doing it all the time, and our big goal was to combat exactly that, how inclusive or exclusive and exclusionary raids were. And I actually ended up making an account on EU and experienced the dichotomy. Like, I would say Cryptic's right. Like, we have our own goofy things over here. We focus on KP, EU focuses on LI, but I can tell you that every single raid I ever joined in EU demanded it of me. And no amount of talking or like titles or like, let me link you my kp.me, killproof.me, whatever. They wanted nothing to do with it. They had to have that. And I can't even tell you the last time somebody was super serious about me pinging KP in I
feel like it's becoming that way. I this is a while ago, but I listened to a Tea Time with Mighty Teapot and Brazil and one other person I can't remember.
Tea Time. Yeah.
Yes, Tea Time. But I can't remember the name of the guest that they had on, but it was the guest who is actually, because you know, Teapot is EU. He can play on either server, but mostly EU. This streamer, it was a guest. I wish I could remember the name. Apologies if you're watching this. He was raiding in NA, you know, like marginally experienced raider, probably not the most experienced, but it seemed, you know, just like he had marginal experience. It seemed like he knew what he was doing. And he was playing on an alt. And the raid leader that he was joining, the groups he was joining, they were refusing to let him join because he didn't have any KP. So I feel like it's becoming more that, I mean, I've been removed from the LFG scene for so long, so I can't say from my own experience.
Why did you do that?
ArenaNet removed me.
Oh man, for being too toxic.
Too toxic.
People were just so tired of you not succeeding, Cryptic. They
way
finally
too.
they had
Yep,
enough.
they've had enough. They had enough.
But I had the same thing, right? Like at the time when I went to EU,
Mhm.
that was at the height of like the, our streams popularity. We
Yep.
had done a ton in the raid scene. Most people in NA knew us. I had a lot of friends over on EU. I was going over there. I was doing the hard stuck thing. And I was, like I would have friends be like, no, this is Merrick. Like he's an experienced raider. And they would be like, no. Like I was like, even people vouching for me, like it didn't matter. And it was so, they were very strict about it in a way that I just don't see as much in NA. There are differences between communities from across the pond, and that is probably the most distinct. Which is the poll is up. All right, everyone vote. No,
Mary-
only
Okay,
one
so
vote.
I made a
The poll's
mistake
messed
with the
up,
poll.
yeah.
I made a mistake. Hold on.
Wait, should Merrick shave the mustache?
And then I said
It's a
yes.
double yes.
It's kind of a double yes.
So yes or
Dream
yes.
poll. It can only be yes.
Oh my God,
Judy.
it must be like what is that called? Hold on.
I'm going to report this poll.
Hold on. I'm redoing the poll.
Oh, Rackham Jones just asked a very fascinating question. Do you think auto queue raid finder would help? So I should say for anybody watching this podcast now or in the future when we upload it to YouTube, that we're specifically talking about Guild Wars 2, which to date is probably the only modern game, the only modern MMO that does not offer a queuing system.
Mhm,
Right? We don't talk about this very often, but man, is that like defining,
mhm.
right? Like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, Elder Scrolls, it doesn't matter. Like you queue up for something and then it shoves you together.
Mhm.
That does not exist here. People have to seek it out. You sort of look for what the groups are advertising. You go in, they kick you. Do I think that bypasses some problems? Yes. You want to know the truth? Like LFR, Raid Finder in World of Warcraft. The other problem, I think, and I think that this really goes into that discussion, Reckham, is that in Guild Wars 2, there is so much of a divide between the average player who just got to level 80 or even has been 80 for a long time, the average player who doesn't raid, and then their experience going into their first raid. It is such a chasm to cross.
Mhm.
I say it all the time, like Guild Wars 2's combat system is beautiful, it's amazing, but 99% of this game, you can do whatever you want and it's going to work. In fact, one of the ways to determine that that's true is go ask a bunch of players who don't raid, like, hey, you got any good builds? And they'll be like, yeah, oh man, I got the best build ever. This is the bestest build in the world. And they will share
Even
the
some people
most
that do
ridiculous
raid.
thing. Like it's just so goofy and
Yeah.
ineffective. And they're so convinced that it works great because it works good for them. But when you walk into a raid, that divide is very evident. So in World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy, there's like easy raids, medium raids, advanced raids, super hard raids, like, and it sort of funnels you in with that experience. I think here we're taking the single most hardcore, sweaty, jaded, like intense gamers who have been rating the same content for years and years, and we're putting them in the same little box as somebody who's trying to raid for the first time ever. And there isn't a distinction. So I think that like the whole infrastructure of raids needs to be sort of reworked just a little bit. Junie, yeah, she ran upstairs. I don't know what she's done. I'm hoping she's getting some snacks because I'm hungry. But I think that the system should be reworked. I think that it should be more invested in the end game in terms of ramping difficulty, rewarding the end game content, and in the infrastructure that allows people to find other players to get together. I would like to see a lot more investment on that part.
I think that I agree. I mean, I don't think the LFR is. I think it would actually be a detriment to this game in general. I think it's going to bring introducing it at this point is going to bring more negatives than positives. I feel like, and we've seen a lot of those negatives in Lost Ark. I mean, apparently LFR there is a nightmare.
Is
so
it? Yeah, okay, I haven't done that yet.
That's what I've heard. I was listening to a podcast and one guy was talking about his experience, and apparently he couldn't complete a Guardian raid because whenever he LFR'd for it, because he didn't have a group to do it with. Whenever he LFR'd for it, he said 80% of the time he got people that didn't know what they were doing, and he couldn't explain it to them no matter how hard he tried. And then the other 20%, when he got a group that looked like it was actually going to do it, someone DC'd. And if you DC from instance content in Lost Ark, you cannot reinvite the person. They cannot rejoin. I mean, they can rejoin if they come back right away, but if they come back later, they can't rejoin. And it doesn't randomly put someone in there for you. So you can't
Okay.
complete the content if you're short on people.
But those are other factors that don't need to be there, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's
like,
true.
we could clean that up and have it be a better system. For example, Rackham said something to the effect of you could queue your role, and it could have a stat requirement. So, healer might have 900 healer power. Boon
Mm,
could have duration stat be one thing. Um,
that's true.
at the very least, queuing specifically for role could really solve a lot of things.
Yeah, that's
You could
true.
even like queue multiple things. I can tank DPS, alacrity, quickness. I mean, how nice would that be if that could actually be worked out? Because I'll tell you, um, one of the biggest things, and this is actually a bigger issue in NA than it is in EU, right? We talk about this a lot. No one wants to lead raids in NA. People are just willing to tag up and raid in EU way more often than in NA. People will want to join a group, but they don't want to lead it. And that's why whenever I stream raids and I lead the raid, I always speak out loud. Some of you guys who remember my raid streams, right? I do this every time. I'm like, let's talk about how we're building this group. What do
Mm,
we need? How do I know what subgroup to put which one in? Right? Like this is harder in this game than it is in any other game,
mm,
and it's all because of that boon stranglehold that I've been talking about, man. Like it really defines the end game. But when you're deciding, hey, I want to put together a raid for this, it requires a very advanced raider to actually understand how the boons are set up, how to put it together, what you need, uh, what to ask someone to play, and then what subgroup to put them in. That's the hardest part of raiding. It really is. That's the last step. So
yeah, I
any
mean,
way to streamline that would be good, right?
yeah, I mean, it absolutely. I think that would be good. I mean, you know, I think the role queue sounds like a better solution than just the straight up LFR. But I mean, regardless of whether this is something, whether it's something that is good or not, because we don't actually have it in the game right now, and we probably never will have it. Um, I, I think what this shows is that ArenaNet has to do twice as much work to advertise end game content, right? Like end game content just is hidden away in its almost hidden away in its current state. And ArenaNet really needs to, if they're not going to have an LFR, which is does like half of your advertisement work for you, they
Mhm.
really need to push end game content as much as possible. There needs to be like a neon sign that's like go here for end game content.
And that has never been here.
Mhm,
Nothing about end game content rewards you with things that you can't get somewhere else.
mhm,
And that includes story, right? That's what I talk about all the time. I say it constantly, and I think it really does define the experience of end game in this game versus other games.
mhm,
Like, if you want the best gear in the game, do you have to raid? No, and that seems very normal to you as a Guild Wars 2 player, but it is not normal for the genre. In general, you want the biggest, baddest gear. You want to
mhm,
look the coolest. You want to be the big bad, dragon slayer that impresses everyone in town. That's rating, but it isn't in Guild Wars 2. And it's not story either. The completion of the expansion that we're doing right now, we're not about to fight, the big bad. You know what? I can't say anything because Cryptic doesn't know the strike missions. I would have said something just now that I'm not going to say.
wow,
Ooh,
how
spoiler
soon?
Well,
almost.
I'm just saying
Spoiling it for me, man.
there's a
Spoiling
little
it
bit
for
of a turn. But anyway, it is, well, legendary armor, but legendary armor can be gotten in any game mode. You can do legendary armor in World v World. You can do it in PvP. You can do it in raids, and it doesn't necessitate you beating the big bad bosses. In fact, the hardest raids in the game are not included in this legendary armor completion.
Mhm.
So
And
it's
this is
not the cool versions. Well,
I'll say that this is also probably a topic for a larger discussion because I was listening to a podcast today about MMOs and they were talking about all these different problems all these different MMOs have, and to me it really signifies that I mean every MMO has every game has problems, but every MMO has problems. That's the way it's going to be. Um, and I think the important thing that should come out of a lot of these discussions and should hopefully get back to the devs that the player base should be pushing is the issues that are preventing the game from being successful long term. Like we talked
Mhm.
about more monetization in Guild Wars 2 so they can be more financially stable so ArenaNet can continue, or better
Making more content, yeah.
advertising. Yeah, advertise more content that comes along more quickly so the player base stays more invested, better advertising of the new content coming out. Those are the kind of issues that really need to hit the PR team's ears, really need to hit the dev team's ears so that hopefully that can get trickle back up to leadership, and those changes can be effect, because that's really, all these other things we're talking about, like, like we want more raids, right? Like, we want raids to be harder. We'll use that as an example, or we want, a different stat set or something like that. Those are all, or more balance. Those are all things that are important to the player base, but maybe not necessarily important to the long-term success of the game. And issues that are important to the long-term success of the game are really the ones that need to be pushed, outside of in these discussions, but more importantly, outside of these discussions. I've seen way too many posts on Reddit and on the forums that are such non-starter issues that, like, it worries me that devs will stop actually reading the forums. They will stop paying attention to these things. They will stop, people sit there and they wonder, oh, I've got this serious issue. Why isn't a dev responding to me? Why am I not getting more interaction here? Maybe it's because all of these posts that are filling up the forums, they're just tired of dealing with, some issues that really just aren't issues. I'm not saying that things shouldn't be reported. I want the community as a whole to kind of focus more on the ground, like we talked about the servers being empty. Like, that is affecting people's perception of the game. That is affecting people's perception of the success of this expansion, and therefore going to affect whether more people come in and play it. And that is an issue. That should be, why is that buried in the forums? Why is there only like two? I only saw like 2 posts about it. I had to search for the one that had Ruby's response on it. Like, that should be top, front and center. We need this fixed. It's for the health of the game, for the long-term health of the game.
I agree with you and with Eliandria. Time to shave Merrick. Looks like the poll has me winning, Junie.
Oh my god.
Oh
7 people. Oh no, it ended.
I mean, I guess we can take a screenshot of this and show it to No Point and see if he's accepting of this.
How many no's were there?
Mustache, The what?
How many no's were there?
4.
4
and 7 yeses. Yes, I was one of the yeses.
Oh, you don't count, so take that off. You can't vote in your own poll. No.
I should get to.
No.
So just to wrap up Endgame, right? Just to wrap up my take on the strikes. When I went into this expansion, I was very sad. I was very, very. People missed the poll. Okay, put the poll back up. So when I heard about what they were doing, where they weren't going to be adding any raids, right? A lot of our sort of like raid community immediately wrote the entire expansion off. A lot of people did. They were like, "Oh, well, our game mode is dead." They've basically told us as much. We're not going to get a raid at launch. And then ArenaNet said something to the effect of like, "We're kind of done with raids. We're going to move towards this strike thing." In the beginning, strikes were supposed to be addressing what I was talking about before, which is this large divide between someone who has been not raiding and then someone that wants to raid, right? It was supposed to be a ramp that got people used to 10-man content and then ramped them up into raiding. So, and I think in a way that was relatively successful. The intro strikes are very easy. They were very good money. They could be done every day. They were sort of more like fractals, except they were 10-man. And so like it was really digestible for people who were not real raiders. Now my concern was that raids were going to be dead. And I guess in the form of like, are we going to come out with a giant raid wing with 4 bosses? That's probably not going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
But the inclusion of these events, how they interact with the story, because they do, right?
Yeah,
that's actually something really cool. We didn't see that in raids at all.
Yeah,
but
I know what the first strike is, so I've heard and seen that. So I do know how it
strikes
interacts with
from
the story.
prior to the expansion.
Yes, true, correct. That's also they also interact with the story.
Yeah, and that's actually a really cool thing, right? They introduce you to the strike in the story in a very easy way, and then they give you like a harder 10-man version of that, and they've continued that. They've continued that into this expansion as well, and it's really cool to me because I think what I've learned in the last 2 days is that I don't need it to be a raid wing. Like if this means that they're going to be coming out with new individual raid bosses from strikes, which by the way, I killed a raid boss and watched somebody drop a cool, unique ascended skin just like a raid. By the way, I saw that happen today. So that's still there. That element of raiding is still there. That they're difficult fun, exciting 10-man content that has to do with the story going forward, that they're going to release on a regular, reliable schedule in the same way that they do dropping random new fractals. Like, to me, I think that it actually could serve as a boon to end game 10-man content. Like, we just have to stop calling it raids. That might be the only concession we have to make, right?
Yeah, I'm
But
fine
they
with
were
that.
fun and challenging, and the CMs aren't out yet, man. Like, I'm genuinely excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds awesome. I mean, I'm excited as well. Like I said, I haven't done one yet, but you've made me even more excited to actually start tackling them.
Bro,
So,
when this stream is over, let's go.
okay, all right, let's go.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
That goes for anyone who would like to join in the stream.
I
Feel
mean, yeah,
free
we
to
could set
join
something up.
us.
Maddox says you can't shave until you get the curl to yeah. So what this is that everyone was bullying me to keep growing this until it turns into a full-fledged handlebar mustache. I'm supposed to be able to like twist it at the end. I hate everything about this, but just so you guys know what they're trying to do. Wait, now you don't leave the poll up long enough.
What?
I actually voted yes this time.
I voted
felt
yes
sympathy
this
for
time.
you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Did you to shave it?
I did.
So all the votes were you guys?
I guess so.
I think so. Junie, did you vote no the last time?
No, I voted yes last time.
Oh, she's against it. She's not neutral like me. She's against it.
I can't. I'm on EU, but I wish good luck, people. Yeah,
Oh,
the divide between the two is one of the saddest things. I wish we could freely swap back and forth. I really do.
It
Yeah.
would be nice. One more thing I wanted to hit on before maybe we do the wrap up segment or something. Free mounts, right? Isn't that awesome? That ArenaNet you can, if you don't have Path of Fire, there's like 3 mounts you can get.
Yeah,
but that's
they just give it to you.
Yeah,
Yes.
giving people what you called it as the joy of movement, America,
Yes.
to people that have bought this expansion and don't have Path of Fire. I mean, that's really awesome.
That is really cool. In fact, the way that they're treating the beginning of Cantha almost feels like the beginning of an ESO expansion. Don't you feel like when ESO comes out with a new expansion, it's kind of insular. No expansion really requires you to do a previous expansion.
Yep.
So you can choose the order in which you do it, which means that every time a new expansion comes out, they have to treat it as if it's a welcome to the game to a brand new player. Because when you make a character, you start there.
Yep.
It feels to me like they're doing that here more than any other expansion. When you say they're like, hey, let's teach you how combat works. The first freaking heart is like, here's how a JP works. Here's how you dodge to get a chest. Here's how you do CC. And here's how you do combo fields. They're teaching us how to play the game as if you've never played it. They're giving you mounts as if you never did POF, and even like the Raptor taxis that Junie loves so much. It
I love
feels like a
those.
cool. She loves them.
I've
It feels
seen
like an
Junie
introduction.
taking 1 or 2 of them.
No, we did all of them to get the achievement.
Yes.
Oh, there's an achievement.
There is an
There
achievement.
is. If you take a raptor from each of the different locations, you have to take it not to the location, but from the location checks the achievement off.
Yeah. And see, Buddy says, yeah, that heart was one of the highlights. I think that it's a really cool way to introduce people to the game. I would love people to come in because if you buy the game, you buy the expansion, you get a boost. I mean, you can literally start there.
And is it true you get another shared inventory spot, or does that go away when you use the boost?
You do.
You do.
See, that's
When
really nice.
you have to use the boost to get rid of it, but then you get the spot.
That's very nice.
And you guys know me, I only have the ones that were given to me for free, so I've had like 2 or 3. So this is big.
Oh, you only have 2 or 3, man.
I do.
We should get you some more.
That's my only real form of KP.
For Merrick's.
Anyone want to donate to the Merit, get more inventory space? No, I keep my gating crystal and magnetite shard exchanges there for KP when I really need them.
Yeah, that's good.
Virus says the only thing that sucks is it seems like an intro, but as you touched on before, they didn't advertise the game like they should have, so it's kind of awkward. And especially because we're feeling like it's empty. Right? It's like it's like opening the doors to the new Disneyland and no one's there to walk through the gates. Right? There's all this cool introductory flashy stuff and no one is seeing it. Oh, you know what it reminds me of? Shrek. When they walk into the castle with the little dude and they press the little music box and the music box comes on, but there's no one there. You know what I mean? Like that does feel that way and it is a little awkward, but I really hope that like we talked about the timing right now being really bad. I think their initial numbers could be worse than we want them to be, but my hope is that people end up here, just trickling in over time. So that's, we'll see. Time will tell. But my hope is that this turns into a great funnel for the game.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it will.
No,
We'll
buddy.
see. I guess like one last topic before we maybe wrap it up or get the questions. I don't know. But what do you guys like on that note about like this being a good funnel into the game, or potentially we hope so. Once people are funneled in, we need stuff to keep them here. Do you think ArenaNet will continue to pump out content? Do you think they can keep this? Because the big thing, right? We get an
Whew.
expansion. There's been like 3 expansions, right? We get an
In 10
expansion.
years.
Yeah, it's good. We're happy. We want more. We always want more with Guild Wars 2. We always want more, and then it is like a desert, like an endless desert. I mean, we call it the unending ocean. It should be the unending desert.
The content desert.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so do I think that they'll be able to keep it up? I think that they've not been able to look past this entire time. I think they've
Mhm.
been really focused on getting this expansion right and finished, because in terms of their company being literally turned upside down, right? Like we can't talk about this without mentioning that.
Yep.
Like NCSoft came in last year, turned the company upside down, fired everybody, hired everybody, and in that time they made a new expansion, right? Like they
Mhm.
came in, they were told stop spending money on other projects. We know that this is true. And then there was a declaration of an expansion that we all thought wasn't going to happen, and then couldn't imagine happening, especially in this time frame. I
Mhm.
don't think that they have any ideas beyond this, except to see how this pans out. I think directly how to answer that question is going to be how well this expansion does. And then unfortunately, I think that's what we're seeing. Maybe a little. I'm like, this is all theory, right? We don't know the numbers here, but they're not helping that by not even letting us get a good idea for how many people are there
Mhm.
because of the way that zone issue is. So I think it's going to depend on how well this does. But I think we could probably keep, like think about the last year. You, Cryptic, and me were not that into the Living World story,
Mhm.
right? Now that content wasn't exciting when they came out with a new Living World chapter. I didn't really get that excited because I wasn't that
Yeah.
invested in the story.
Mhm.
Now, what if they just maintain the same release schedule, the same content release schedule, making Living World story chapters? But if they were to do it now, I would be much more excited about that, right? Like, first of all, 9 new classes, and that's the last one I'd like to touch on. I'd like to touch on the elite specs.
Mhm.
But 9 new elite specs is going to keep me entertained for at least a year. And it just is like that's just the way that I am. I'm gonna have like so much fun playing around with all the balance that's coming in May, or May, June, whatever, the summer. It's gonna
Mhm.
be great. And the new elite specs that are given to us. But it's if a new story chapter came out now, I'd be I'd be stoked. I'd be way more excited than I was before. So maybe even just a change in direction, aside from the change in content uh quantity, right? Maybe just the quality is going to make the difference for me. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if they continue that release cycle, and there's we have the better story, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think that would sustain the game. I don't think that would improve the game, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Um, I mean, it's interesting. I I think that the part that really trips me up though is that you say this content release cycle that we've had in the past. If the story was better, it would probably have been acceptable. I Maybe from a story perspective that would be true. Like when we watch reviews from people like Lazy Peon, bigger Josh Drive Hayes, bigger
mhm.
like MMO reviewers and curators. This seems like the biggest complaint we get was is there's just never enough content. And I don't think, not just from a story perspective, but mechanics and new things like that. We talked about just adding player housing, stuff like that. Uh,
And fishing.
and fishing, yeah. I We
Just wait
have
for the
fishing
fishing
now.
raids, bro.
I mean, they
Fishing
got it right
raids,
with the
that's
fishing.
true. That's
Just
true.
wait for the fishing raids. It's unlimited content.
Yeah, I think we need more than just these story drops that we're getting with like we were getting in the past here. Um, I mean, obviously, they came with maps, they came with things to do, but I I want them to continue to be innovative with Living World and not just take the things that have already existed and provide us an area to experience the story.
Mm.
Yes, I think that story, hopefully, I'm putting faith that that story will be better than what we've gotten previously, especially the last Living Story. But I don't I don't think that will be enough if that's the only thing they do.
I
Um,
like that Buddy says housing and XPAC 4 confirmed carpentry mastery. Let's go.
yeah, that would be
That would
awesome.
do it, dude. That would do it for
Yeah.
me. Additional systems are good, right? If if I'm honest about myself, like I don't think I need super amounts of innovation. I just want them to continue supporting what I feel like we enjoy. And
Mm,
I'm fully aware. You guys have heard me say it before, and it's true. Like I don't think Guild Wars 2 is made for me. I think that it's actually designed for a kind of player that I am not, a much more casual player that doesn't require raid dynamics or end game competitive, atmosphere
mm,
that I do. I think it's designed for a much more casual, story oriented, achievement hunting, completionist type of person.
mm,
And for those people, I think this game knocks it out of the park. I think this expansion is 100% what those people want, and the Living World story keeps those people happy.
mm,
So I never fault them. I think for me, if I'd like the story now, and they continue adding strike missions that go along with the story, and those strike missions are hard, and they add valuable or like challenging CMs with valuable rewards, that's enough. It's enough for me.
mm.
But everybody definitely does have like a different criteria. Flying Triangle says, I push back a little on big Guild Wars 2 streamers complaining about a lack of content when they play the game for 8 hours a day. Of course, there won't be enough for them. I mean, that is very true. And that's what I always say it, guys. I think the one thing you can rely on me saying is that Guild Wars 2 is the perfect game, except the complaints that you could have about it, the average player is not going to have for years. I really don't. I think that's true. I think like if you start Guild Wars 2 today, the average player is going to have an amazing experience leveling, a wonderful story experience as they
Mhm,
progress, exploration, map completion, all sorts of things. And the real valid complaints don't really come until you're an old, grumpy, jaded gamer.
mhm.
Right. And by then, have you got your $40 worth from Guild Wars 2? Yes, of course you
Probably.
have.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like when Final Fantasy, right? There's so much money, so much sustainability for content in that game that you play it all the time or not at all. Same is true for World of Warcraft. Guild Wars 2 has found this sort of sweet spot for a very casual player or somebody that does everything there is to do and then knows it's time to put it down and play something else for a while and
Mhm,
then come back when the next Living World story chapter comes out. And as long as you could do that without resentment, then it's a healthy place to be and the game is good. I agree with you. Um, I don't think that people who play 8 hours a day have the same perspective that the average gamer does, but it is hard to not compare and contrast. And there are games like Elder Scrolls Online, which has maybe the single most ambitious content release schedule that I've ever seen in my entire life. Every time I ever look at that game, there's like 2 new DLCs or a brand new expansion announced, and it just blows my mind. So you just got to know what you're looking for. Guild Wars 2 has been out for 10 years. It knows its player base. Its player base knows it. I think that for the most part, by and large, it's a synergistic dynamic that works for 90% of gamers. Cryptic and I represent that
small.
10%.
Small minority.
Junie is definitely the 90%. In fact, like now, like with raids being sort of off the table going forward, Cryptic and I were almost like, man, I don't know, maybe we need to find another game.
Yeah.
Junie is like, there's a new expansion and I can fish.
I was so excited for the fishing. I'm still excited for the fishing.
Now she's excited to play
Oh
Guild
yeah.
Wars 2 when the last year of me raiding every day had no interest for her to come back to the game. So that's, like I said, it just depends on who you are and what you want.
It's very true.
So let's
So,
wrap up on elite specs. Cryptic, what do you like? What are you playing actually
uh,
going through the story?
I'm going through the story, which is pretty much exclusively what I've been doing. I've been map completing and going through the story. That's pretty much exclusively what I've been doing.
Yep.
And I've been messing around with like like some builds on the side and stuff like that. Nothing too serious though. I'm not a theory crafter. I leave that to, in this game at least. In other games, yeah, but in this game, I leave the theory crafting to the Snow Crows people and the other people in those kind of discords. That being said, though, I've been playing Untamed because my main character is a ranger. I play all the story on my ranger.
Dumping some bunnies. Okay.
Yes, and Untamed is amazing. It's what ranger has always need for. Ranger has always had a problem, in my opinion, in open world. Open world, it was you either was too squishy because you were trying to get DPS out of it, or it was too tanky because you were trying to build in survivability and didn't have enough. You couldn't do enough damage, or the damage you were doing just didn't feel impactful. You know, maybe you were doing a lot of damage, but it's not as cool as the cool longbow stuff, or going around with your great sword and doing the cool slam attack. So
you find it fun?
I find it fun. For two reasons. The second thing that it impacts is that it actually solves a problem that Rangers always had with pets. So when Ranger first came out, pets were cool but annoying, right? They did some stuff, but they didn't really do enough. And they kind of like got in the way and didn't listen to you enough. ArenaNet didn't touch pets at all with Druid. That was a support thing. We needed that for raids and end game content. Soulbeast came out and it solved what half of the Ranger community wanted, right? Half the Ranger community wanted their pet to go away.
Yeah, I gotcha.
They wanted the pet to go away. I hate this pet. It's stupid. It only hurts me. I want to play a Legolas Ranger. I'm not here to play a pet Ranger. This is so dumb. And
isn't it funny how everyone's been wanting their pet back now? Like as time goes.
That was the other half of the community that was definitely not they were the vocal. I don't want to say minority, but they were or not the vocal. They were the silent. I don't want to say the silent minority, but they were the silent half because they had their pet. It just wasn't really what they wanted out of their pet. So the vocal, the other vocal half, or maybe even majority, who wanted what they couldn't have, which was the pet to go away, got their wish. And this expansion has provided the other half of what they wanted, which is their pet does more things now. It is part of your rotation. It is part of the interaction. It is a core part of everything you do now. It gives you access to more skills, not only on the pet, but if you're using the hammer, which I'll get into, you also get more skills on the other side of the hammer. And it interacts with every weapon. I wish it interacted more, but whenever you're doing skills in the untamed form, or whatever you want to call it, I don't forget the exact name, bad with names. You get this ambush skill, which in your auto attack, which makes you do this, bonus damage. You basically do this spin on a hammer. It does a crazy spin, like you're whirling around like you're a scrapper.
I like the thing that it drops all the mushrooms and they blow up. The animations are cool with those hammers.
Yes, it gets cantrips now, and it's really nice. And basically, by the way, this entire trait line, this is a PvP spec, and because it's a PvP spec, it has survivability built in. Yes, so you get to do decent damage because it's a PvP spec. They didn't remove all the damage, but you have survivability built in, which makes it perfect. Those are the builds I love the most in open world because I was constantly, and Phoenix can say this, I was constantly like either doing crazy damage because I had basically almost basically a raid build, a slightly tweaked raid build for open world. And I was doing crazy damage or decent damage, maybe not crazy, decent damage, but I was going down sillily, in silly ways because I just didn't have enough survivability.
Sillily.
This really solves it. Like I can still use my greatsword. I can still use all the other weapons I like. I can use a hammer, which I love using the hammer.
Dude, I love hammers, bro.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I wish I could use more of them.
Yeah, and it's really, really good.
I'm just fascinated by this because I was talking with Azure earlier, who is like a diehard Bunny Thumper fan from Guild Wars 1, was very excited for this. I was on the fence about buying EOD and was, finally talked into it because of how much we all love it. Wanted to play, the Bunny Thumper and thought it was so boring that he swapped immediately to something else. So I was just fascinated.
It's not complicated. If you wanted something complicated, it's not complicated. This is not
but satisfying.
This is not it's satisfying to me. I also don't think this is a PvP spec. This is not, as far as I can tell. Somebody said in chat earlier that it does crazy damage. I asked for a link to a build or a rotation. I would love it to do crazy damage, but it doesn't share boons, despite the fact that
Condi, right? If you want to do DPS, and it's only like 32,
Yes, you are correct. It is
yeah,
Condi, and it's only like 32. It's not
which means
great.
no hammer.
Yes, no hammer. It's
Boo.
sad. I mean, I knew that as soon as I saw the hammer. And by the
Yeah.
way, there's no DPS hammer. I mean, Scrapper, but I mean,
Hey yo, I was gonna say
um,
I have been top DPS in groups with you with a hammer scrapper.
I mean, that is true, right?
It is the exception, not the rule.
those were rigged scenarios.
Those
Where
were
you
rigged
got
scenarios.
crazy boons, and it's unbelievable. No, I mean, I think what would have put this over the top, and I wish they had done this, but what would have put this over the top is if every weapon, when you switch to Untamed, got Untamed skills. Only Hammer does. So you get every weapon gets the ambush, and of course you have your pets, which will be your generation for that ambush. But only the Hammer gets a whole new set of 5 new skills.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and I think that's where the misstep is. That's where it's going to basically lock it down as PvP open world, World v World open world build only, because you get tons of boons. I mean, this thing can pump out boons, but only to you. No one else can get them. And
because that would have been a beautiful hybrid spec. We were talking about that, right? Like hybridization for DPS to provide 5-man boons. It would be nice.
And we talked, we will, maybe we'll get to Greatsword Rev, which is, I mean, it's a big disappointment for me in the beta. I feel like there's the misstep, right? Like this is a class that pumps out boons, like
just
you've baked it. Yeah, you've baked it in. Why not make it for everybody? That can be your hybrid thing. And what all Revenant people wanted was a pure power DPS build. Why did you make that the hybrid? I don't know.
Yeah, that was a little disappointing. Speaking of disappointing, Dragon just nailed it, dude. Okay, so let me just say, in case you guys missed the patch notes, there's been a lot of reworking of survivability, right? They're trying to down some of the most overpowered survivability that exists. Barrier, self-generated barrier on Scrapper, nerfed into the ground. It went from 15% damage conversion to personal barrier to 5%. We lost, 2/3 of barrier. The same thing with Scourge, invigorating precision. In fact, I haven't pylon kited on Rifle Deadeye since this change. I don't know how that's gonna go. So they're obviously trying to make it so that we can't just and like removing Aegis from the Firebrand heal, right? They're trying to get rid of like overwhelming, overtly overpowered passive mitigation, right? That's what they seem to be trying to get rid of. And I understand. In fact, if you ask me what I would want, I'd be like, yes, I'm on board with all of that except the Scrapper. I'm so sad they did that to my Scrapper. But because I used to accomplish Mimi things back with Hammer Scrapper back in the day. But I think in the end it's going to be a good thing.
One more thing before we move off Untamed, because we got so many other ones to get to. Why, Internet, if you're listening to me, please, I'm begging you. I'm begging you.
Uh-oh.
Why did you make the pets look puke green when you're in Untamed form? We have these beautiful pets. We have a phoenix in the game. We have all these beautiful, a white tiger, all these beautiful, beautiful pets. And when you go on Untamed, every single one of them turns into this puke green color. It is hideous.
It's the same thing with the freaking Soul Beast. Like I was on board with getting rid of the pet. I don't mind that. First of all, I want to let you guys know it's the same thing with Mechanist. I cannot stand the pathing for pets. If you summon your pet, first of all, they're like 8 feet in front of you and 4 or 5 feet to the right of you, and they will not let you get close to them. You cannot stand with your pet next to you. It will run away from you. It literally needs to be in that weird, position away from you. So that it's a little thing, but I hate it. It drives me nuts.
I get you.
And then I was on board with Soul Beast getting rid of pets. I was like, that's a cool way to do it. It made me think of Warlock from old school World of Warcraft that would use demonic sacrifice. It would sacrifice your pet demon and give you a buff depending on what the buff was or what the pet was and make you very strong. It was a cool thematic choice. But when they force a green animation around you constantly, right? It's that swirly green stuff. Like, what if I want to be a non-green ranger? Why are you forcing a color scheme on me that I don't want? And it's even worse with the pets, kind of, because you have to have them. They're green, and it's not a good look. the same thing is true. And then this is the next class that I'll talk about. Obviously, we can't go through all 9. It's going to take forever. But one of the things that
We
I've been
could.
playing is the Virtuoso,
Mhm.
and the daggers are cool. And
Yeah.
I hate them. I
Mhm.
don't like 5 floating daggers above me all the time. First of all, it forces a color scheme that I may or may not want in that moment. And it is like a weirdly oppressive animation that you can't get rid of. At the very least, if I stow my weapons, make them go away.
Mhm.
In my opinion, I don't think they should show unless you're actively in combat.
Mhm.
That's me. Then I would
Also,
really like them, but I feel like it's bad.
why was it daggers and not song notes? That's just such a
Because
straightforward win.
because it's not a bard, man. No matter
Yeah, but
how
it's
much
virtuoso. It
I
should be
know.
song notes. But I mean, this is, and
Ugh.
you know, Phoenix says Blight gives an obnoxious green color on Harbinger. This is just like begging for PoE's skill thing, and you know, change your skill look in the cash shop. You know, in the
Path
pearl
of
shop,
Exile he's
or
talking about. Yeah.
yeah, Path of Exile. They have pretty much every skill in the game. You can change the look of it, and it costs you some money, but you can purchase
It's a
something
gem
that
store
will.
item.
It's a gem store item that will
Yeah.
change the look of your skill to something that you might find more appealing. They're, you know, they don't have, it's not, there aren't infinite combinations, but they give you a couple of choices, and you can find something that matches, you know, what theme you're going for.
Arena now, take my money, bro. Just
yeah,
take it. Just make
exactly.
these things so I can give you gems. Like, let's
Exactly.
go.
And we've always said, like Pink Attitude said, we've always said that Fashion Wars is the end game of
Yes.
this game. Why are they messing with it?
They
with
shouldn't be
these
messing with it.
terrible
I also
color
want to.
schemes.
I also want to read what Phoenix said. She said, "I understand." Merrick says in a pained voice, recalling the first time he tanked SH with 0 toughness. See, those were the good old days. I tanked SH, which is one of the hardest hitting bosses in the game, probably the hardest, with Hammer Scrapper in full Berserker, and that is at once one of the coolest things I've ever done, and absolutely proves that it probably should be nerfed. Right? I guess that's what it comes down to. But yeah, in terms of aesthetic, I think that I was really turned off by the fact that Virtuoso is not a bard. It's called Virtuoso. And if you see my Virtuoso in game, you guys are going to see I'm role playing it as a bard. I'm using orchestral weapons. I got the minstrel.
Hide behind the mound of dead bards.
Hide behind the mound of dead bards. Any gamers, Darkness Rising fans out there? Probably not. No. Okay.
There's a couple.
There's a couple.
When are we doing the watch party in the Discord for
Soon.
that?
Yes.
Oh, hey, off topic. Sorry to say this in the podcast, but when I'm up there tomorrow, we're gonna go get waffles, right? We gotta get waffles.
2 waffles.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
100%. Yes.
To find some waffles.
Cryptic is coming to visit us tomorrow up here in New York. So there will be man, we should have hosted like a real life
we got to do
in-person
that at some
podcast.
point. We've got to.
Yeah, that's
That
true.
would be sick. Okay, so obviously we can't go through all of them. There's so many things. I think we'll probably Cryptic, like, what do you think? Like EOD. This is EOD first impressions. It'll be like EOD final impressions next week.
Or in a couple of weeks, maybe.
Okay, next impression, medium impressions. We'll go over the rest of the elite specs. We'll talk about the strikes more because you'll have done them, and we'll talk about the end of the story.
Yes.
Right. So there's still a lot to go through.
So, I mean, maybe this is a question for chat. Obviously, guys, please take part in our Discord.
Yes.
Go ahead and comment in the Coffee Break channel, especially if you feel one way or the other about this. But how do you feel about a spoiler story, at least section of the
podcast?
Yeah,
I feel like this was too early for that.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So like next week probably would feel much better to do that.
Okay.
Just so you guys know, there's been a lot of linking of the Discord. I really hope you guys will come and join it. It's a really big, friendly, active community. We play a ton of games together, including just, Gartic Phone, Fall Guys, first-person shooters, a lot of little random stuff on the side, and everyone is very welcoming. We also have a section in the Discord devoted to the podcast. So we let people know what our topic is ahead of time, gives you the opportunity to discuss things and share your thoughts so that we can share them on stream. So I hope you guys will come and join us for that, to discuss things and just to hang out. You guys are looking for a group of friends? We got the coolest group around. Look at Cryptic. He's so cool. You could be his friend. Come join the Discord.
It's true.
You should have used Junie. People want to actually be friends with Junie.
She's prettier than both of us. Come.
That's true.
It's good
Uh,
we can marry 'cause, titillating conversational skills.
yeah, that's what scares people away. Yeah, so we'll probably wrap it up here. Like I said, we do this every single Friday, guys. So if you're interested in this, if you had fun, if you'd like to interact, we'd love to interact with you. Make sure to come and join the Discord and tune in every single Friday at around 8 or 9 p.m. We always post on Twitter when we're about to go live. So hopefully we will see you for that. I want to give an enormous shout out for our raids tonight, especially Loranity with that giant raid. That was really awesome of you. Thank you guys for the follows and the subs. It means the world. Also, I want to give a special shout out to our Ko-fi subscribers. It really makes the biggest difference for us. So thank you so much for that. That is Null Point, Origin, Zang, Art, in fact, and of course, Maddox. And now NG. Yes, NG. Oh man, there should be some fun stuff with that. Thank you, NG.